Welcome, and thank you for being here. There's no need to do anything at all. Simply allow my voice to be a soft companion, as you begin to drift toward the quiet story of a woman whose hands were her gift, and also her curse. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand. Only the gentle rhythm of a story about the fragile trust between a village and its healer. A story of a life built on bringing new life into the world, and how quickly that foundation can turn to dust. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And as a final whisper before we begin, if you feel so inclined, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's a comfort to know where these stories land. There is no need to type it. Of course, you can simply think it, and we can begin. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. The first thing you are aware of is the quiet. It's a rare and precious commodity in your life. This deep, uninterrupted silence, and you are sunk into it like a stone in a still pond. Sleep. It's a luxury you rarely get to afford in one solid piece. Your bed is a nest of straw and lumpy wool. But tonight, it feels like the most decadent comfort in the world. The embers in the hearth have died down to a faint, rosy memory, leaving the one-room cottage in a cool, deep darkness. You can smell the lingering scent of wood smoke and dried herbs, the familiar perfume of your life. And then, it comes, a sound that cuts through the quiet. Rep minus rep. Pause. Rep. It's not the knock of a friendly neighbor borrowing a cup of flour. It's not the heavy minus-fisted rap of the village reeve. It is the knock, the code, the sound that means a new life is fighting its way into the world. Your eyes open in the darkness, not with alarm, but with a weary resignation that is so familiar it feels like a second skin. Your body, full-figured and softened by middle age, protests with a symphony of quiet takes as you swing your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floorboards are shockingly cold against the soles of your feet, a jolt that chases away the last, lovely vestiges of sleep. You don't light a candle. You know the layout of this small space better than you know the lines on your own palms. You move with a slow, practiced economy, putting on a heavy woolen dress over your night shift. Your apes finding the laces without fumbling. This is the routine, the cold slur, the dressing in the dark. You are the village midwife. It's not just what you do. It is who you are. In a world where the nearest physician is a day's ride away and Calden to afford him anyway, you are the beginning and sometimes the end of all medical care for the women of this village. You pull a thick cloak around your shoulders and open the heavy wooden door. The night air bites at your cheeks. Standing there, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a nervous stool, is a young man named Thomas. His face, illuminated by the sliver of a moon, is pale and slick with panicked sweat. It's time, he breathes, the words tumbling out in a cloud of white mist. It's an horror. The pain started just after dusk, but now, they're strong. I think it's time. You give him a slow, coming nod. It's his first. You can always tell by the particular brand of terror in their eyes. You step out into the muddy track that serves as a road, pulling the door shut behind you. The village is a collection of dark, sleeping shapes. Not a single other light burns. There is only the moon, the damp smell of earth, and the frantic, shallow breathing of the young man beside you. As you walk, your sturdy leather shoes making squelching sounds in the mud, you feel that familiar sense of separation. The whole world is asleep, wrapped in its dreams, while you and this terrified father be are walking toward a moment of primal, dangerous creation. You are the sole guardian of these nocturnal gateways between life and death. It's a position of immense, unspoken power. And yet, You are keenly aware of the tightrope you walk. Some historians, centuries from now, will debate the exact standing of women like you. Were you revered, held in the same esteem as the village priest? Or were you a tolerated necessity? A woman whose mysterious knowledge of herbs and bodies was both essential and deeply suspect. The truth, you know, is that you are both. And it all depends on the outcome. When you hand a screaming, healthy babe to a weeping mother, you are blessed. A saint, a miracle worker. But when things go wrong, the whispers start. The gratitude of a village is a fickle and fast fading thing. You've seen it happen in a neighboring town. A midwife's reputation, so carefully built over decades, can be shattered by one bad birth. You push the thought away. It is an unhelpful distraction. You mean to be clear, focused. You arrive at a small, undisturbed cottage. A faint, flickering light glowing in its single window. This is it. Thomas fumbles with the latch and pushes the door open for you. The air that rushes out is thick with the scent of sweat, fear, and boiling water. From the corner of the room, a low, guttural moan confirms what the knock already told you. A child is on its way, and you, with your steady hands and your satchel of secrets, have been summoned to meet it. You step inside, and the world shrinks to the confines of this single room. The air is warm and close, heavy with the scent of human effort. A single tallow candle sputters on a small wooden table, casting long, dancing shadows that make the room seem both smaller and more mysterious. In one corner, two older women, Ilara's mother and an aunt, you presume huddled together, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and excitement. This is their domain. Childbirth is women's business. Thomas, the young husband, hovers awkwardly near the doorway, knowing he is an outsider in this sacred, female space. He looks to you with pleading eyes, and you give him a small, reassuring glance before turning your full attention to the center of the room. There, on a low cot, is Honora. Her face is pale and beaded with sweat. Her long hair plastered to her forehead. She is young, her body tense with pain and the terrifying unknown of a first birth. As another contraction grips her, she lets out a low moan, her knuckles white as she clutches the rough blanket. You don't rush. Panic is a contagion, and you're most important to Liz the Commune Project. You set down your worn leather satchel and move to her side. Your movements slow and deliberate. You place a hand on her forehead, your palm cool against her feverish skin. You are doing well. Delora, you say, your voice slow and steady. It's the voice you use for frightened animals and frightened people. A tone that promises competence and control. She opens her eyes, and in them, you see a flicker of relief. You are here. The expert has arrived. Your hands, large and capable, get to work. They are not the delicate, pale hands of a noble woman. They are working hands, with short, clean nails and a web of fine lines on the knuckles. But these hands have a knowledge that transcends thought. They move with an ancient muscle memory, passed down from your own mother, who was the midwife before you. You gently place a hand on Ilara's taut belly, feeling the hardness of the contraction, assessing its strength and duration. You murmur quiet encouragements, not just to her, but to the baby itself. Come now, little one. It's a hard journey, but we're here to help you. This is the mainstream truth of your world. Childbirth is a communal, female-led ritual. The room is filled with what are sometimes called gossips, not in a negative sense, but as a term for the god-sisters and female companions who support the mother. They manage the hearth, provide drinks, and offer prayers, but when you arrive, a subtle shift occurs. Their chatter quiets. They look to you for direction. You are the conductor of this orchestra of pain and hope. Help me get her up, you say to the other women. It's time for the chair. From your satchel, you retrieve the pieces of your most valuable and peculiar tool, the birthing stool. It's a low, sturdy, U-shaped chair, polished smooth from years of use. Historians of the future will find illustrations of these, but will rarely find physical examples, as they were often burned when a midwife passed away, seen as too personal, too intimate, to be used by another. You assemble it quickly near the warmth of the hearth, getting the mother upright. You know, that's gravity assist in the delivery. Lying down is for the sick, not for the powerful work of birth. As Ilara is settled, you prepare a drink. You pull out a small pouch of dried raspberry leaves from your satchel. The steam that rises from the cup as you add hot water is fragrant and sweet. Academics centuries from now will debate the true effectiveness of these herbal remedies. Was it a primitive form of medicine, a genuine nutrient tonic that eased labor, or was it merely a powerful placebo, a comforting ritual whose main effect was to calm the mother's mind? You don't have the luxury of such debates. You only know that in your experience, it helps. It gives the mother something to focus on. A ruin, sweet anchor in a sea of pain. The hours pass in a rhythm of tension and release. You are the constant, a calm center in the store. You massage or esback. You whisper stories of other difficult births that ended in joy. You guide her breathing. Your hands are everywhere, checking the baby's position, applying counterminus pressure to her hips, wiping her brow with a cool, damp cloth. They are not just tools. They are extensions of your will, your experience, your deep, unspoken connection to the processes of the female body. And then, the final push. The air in the room becomes electric. The other women fall silent, their eyes wide. You are on your knees before the birthing stool, your hands ready. Now, Ilara, you urge, your voice firm but gentle. Ragnar, a great one. Push for your baby. With a final rock ride that seems to tear from the very soul of her, Ilara bears down. There, and you're waiting. Practiced hymns. A new life slides into the world's slippery, bluish, and shockingly still. For one heart-minus stopping second, there is only the sound of Ilara's ragged guests. Then, you expertly clear the baby's airway, and the silence is shattered by a thin, furious wail. A collective sigh of relief ripples through the room. It's a boy, healthy, loud, and angry at his rude eviction from the only homemate she has ever known. You quickly wrap him in a clean linen cloth and place him on his mother's heaving chest. Tears of pain have been replaced by tears of pure, unadulterated joy. Thomas, the soldier, creeps forward from the doorway, his face a mask of disbelief. He looks at you, his eyes shining with gratitude. God bless you, he whispers. God bless your hands. And in this moment, you are a hero. Your hands, which have just guided a life through its most perilous passage, are seen as instruments of a divine miracle. They are trusted. They are blessed. And you allow yourself a small, weary smile, feeling the deep, profound satisfaction of a job well done. The immediate aftermath of a successful birth is a strange, suspended moment in time. The storm has passed, leaving behind a profound calm, and you are the one who presides over it. As Ilara cradles her newborn son, her face transformed by a love so fierce it's almost painful to witness. You continue your work with quiet efficiency. The delivery of the afterbirth is just as crucial as the delivery of the child, a detail often overlooked by the celebratory family but never by you. Your hands, rinsed in a basin of clean water, are gentle but firm as you ensure everything is as it should be. This is your domain. This intimate space of blood and life and relief. You are not just a medical practitioner. You are a confidant, a confessor. In these raw, unguarded moments, you become the keeper of a village's most private histories. You know which births were celebrated and which were whispered about. You know which husbands paced nervously outside and which were nowhere to be found. You know the secret hopes and desperate prayers that are breathed into the close air of the birthing room. As you clean the room, helping the other women change the bedding and make Ilara comfortable, the talk flows. The Aunt recalls her own first birth, a story you've heard a dozen times. but you listen patiently. The mother fusses over her new grandson, clucking and cooing, already planning his future. It is a tapestry of female connection, and you are woven right into the center of it. You are auntie to children you didn't birth and a trusted sister to women who are not your kin. You know, for instance, that the Reeves wife, so stern and pious in public, prayed to a curious mix of the Virgin Mary and an old folk spirit of the hearth during her long labor. You were there. You know that the blacksmith, a man of booming voice and fearsome reputation, wept like a child when he first held his tiny, fragile daughter. You were there. You know which couples struggled for years to conceive, and the quiet, desperate remedies you provided them, herbal infusions and specific dietary advice that future scholars will dismiss as superstition, yet seem to work often enough to bolster your reputation. This is a knowledge that is never written down. It lives in you, in your memory, and in the shared, unspoken understanding of the village women. This role as secret minus keeper grants you a unique, if precarious, status. You are part of the community, yet also apart from it. You are invited to every wedding and every christening, always given a place of honor. People greet you with a respect that borders on reverence, but there is a subtle distance. Your knowledge of the body, of life's messy, painful, and glorious beginnings, set you apart. The men of the village treat you with a careful deference. They understand your necessity, but they don't quite understand you. Your power is distinctly female, rooted in mysteries they can never access. And this is where the controversy lies, a quiet debate that will echo through the centuries. Were midwives like you truly empowered figures, matriarchs of a hidden, female-dominated sphere, or were you simply filling a vacuum, performing a dangerous and often thankless task that no one else could? Historians will argue, some painting you as a proto-feminist icon, others seeing you as a vulnerable practitioner, 1 foot always in the shadow of suspicion. The truth you live is much muddier. Your authority is real, but it is conditional. It is granted to you by the community, and it can be rescinded just as quickly. One of the more peculiar parts of your job comes now. You take a small, sharp knife and carefully cut a tiny piece from the newborn's umbilical cord after it has been tied off. You wrap this small, fleshy scrap in a piece of linen. This is the navel minus string, and what happens to it is a matter of great local custom. Some families bury it under the hearth to tie the child to the home. Others might place it in a book if they hope for a scholar, or in a money minus pouch if they wish for a merchant. It is a piece of folk magic, a sympathetic ritual to help shape the child's destiny. The church frowns upon such practices, calling them pagan remnants. But they persist, stubborn as weeds. You perform the ritual without comment, handing the small packet to the new father with a knowing look. It is a part of the service they expect, a bridge between the clinical reality of birth and the spiritual hopes of the family. Before you leave, Elara's mother presses a small bundle into your hand. It's your payment. There are no set fees for your work. You are paid in kind, according to the family's means. Today, it is a small loaf of dark bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and a precious handful of dried apples. It is a good payment. It signifies their gratitude and respect. You give Elara one last look. She is exhausted, but her eyes are bright. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. "I was so afraid." "You were strong," you reply, "and it is the honest truth. Rest now, both of you." You step back out into the night. The first hints of dawn are painting the eastern sky in shades of grey and pale rose. The world is beginning to wake up. You walk home, the small bundle of food held in your arms. The air feels clean and new. You have once again stood on the threshold between worlds and guided a soul safely across. The respect of your community feels solid, tangible, as real as the loaf of bread you carry. For now, the sun is higher in the sky now, and the brief, profound exhaustion of the night's work has been replaced by a familiar, gentle energy. Your cottage, which felt so cold and empty when you left it, is now bathed in morning light. After a simple breakfast of the bread and cheese you earned, you head out to the place that is your true sanctuary, your laboratory, and your legacy, your garden. It's not a large plot of land tucked behind your small home, but it is a riot of managed life. To a stranger, it might look like a messy, overgrown tangle of weeds and flowers, a chaotic jumble of green, but to you, it is a living library. Every leaf, every root, every blossom has a purpose. You move between the narrow, well-trodden paths, your fingers brushing against the foliage, a quiet greeting to old friends. The air is thick with 100 different scents: the sharp, clean smell of mint, the earthy aroma of damp soil, the sweet, heavy perfume of blooming chamomile. This garden is the source of your power, the physical manifestation of your knowledge. You don't have books filled with arcane diagrams or Latin script. Your knowledge is oral, passed from your mother, and practical, learned through a lifetime of observation and cautious experimentation. You know that a poultice of comfrey, the plant some call it bone, can help soothe a nasty bruise or a sore joint. You know that a tea made from the flowers of the linden tree can calm a fever. You know that chewing on the bark of a willow tree can ease a headache. A folk remedy that, centuries from now, scientists will understand contains a chemical precursor to aspirin. You spend the morning in a state of meditative work. You are waiting, your hands moving with a practiced rhythm, pulling out the stubborn intruders that would choke your precious plants. You are harvesting, snipping stems of lavender and yarrow, bundling them together to hang from the rafters of your cottage to dry. Each plant has its own time, its own season. You are in a constant, quiet dialogue with the rhythms of the natural world. This connection to the earth is a fundamental part of your identity. Mainstream medieval medicine, the kind practiced by university-trained physicians in big cities, is based on the theory of the four humus blood: phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. It's all about balancing these internal fluids. But your medicine is different. It is earthier, more intuitive. It's about harnessing the inherent properties, the virtues, of the plants that grow around you. It's a knowledge that is deeply practical and rooted in this specific place, this soil. As you work, you notice something peculiar. A patch of hot seas, the small, cheerful flowers with faces like tiny, pensive clowns, has grown especially vibrant this year. This is one of your oddest but most requested remedies. Village lore, a piece of knowledge that exists far outside any formal medical text, says that a tea made from this flower can help mend a broken heart or soothe the sting of unrequited love. It's one of those things that makes you smile. Does it actually work? Who can say? But the young women of the village swear by it. They come to you in secret, their eyes red-rimmed, and you give them a small packet of the dried flowers with a sympathetic nod. Whether the cure is in the flower or in the simple act of being heard and cared for is a question you don't bother to ask. This is the kind of knowledge that future historians will struggle with. This blurry line between herbalism and folk magic. For you, it is simply part of the same whole, caring for the community in body and in spirit. But you are also keenly aware of the danger that this garden represents. To your friends and patients, this is a place of healing. But to a suspicious mind, it could be seen very differently. Every healing herb has its opposite. The same foxglove that can, in tiny, carefully controlled doses, strengthen a weak heart, can, in slightly larger doses, stop that heart entirely. The knowledge of how to heal is inextricably linked to the knowledge of how to harm. It is a terrifying duality, and it is the source of the fear that sometimes flickers in people's eyes when they look at you. There is an ongoing debate among scholars about the so-called witch craze that will sweep through parts of Europe in the centuries to come. What was its true origin? Was it religious hysteria, social control, or a deep seated misogyny? One compelling argument is that it was, in part, a lure on the female-led healthcare that you represent. As male physicians began to organize and professionalize, they sought to discredit their traditional rivals. And what better way to do that than to brand a midwife's herb garden from a source of healing into a demonic pantry? You see a shadow fall across your work and look up. It's a young girl, maybe 7 years old, holding out a small, grubby hand. In it is a dead bird. Her face is a tragic mask of sorrow. "Can you fix him?" she whispers, her voice trembling. You feel a pang of sympathy. You gently take the small, still body from her. You examine the broken wing, the unseeing eye. You look into her hopeful, tear-filled face. Sometimes, you sigh softly, choosing your words with care. There are things that even the strongest herbs can't mend. All we can do is give him a proper resting place, so he can fly in his dreams. You help her dig a small hole beneath the big oak tree at the edge of your garden. It's a small, simple act of kindness, but it feels important. It is a reminder that your job is not always about dramatic cures. Sometimes, it's just about offering comfort in the face of the inevitable. As the little girl skips away, feeling she has done right by her fallen friend, you remain by the tree for a moment, looking out over your vibrant, living, and dangerously potent kingdom of green. A few weeks later, the village decides to hold a feast. The harvest was good this year. The barns are full, and there's a collective sense of relief and prosperity in the air. These feasts are the lifeblood of the community, a chance to set aside the endless toil and simply be together. DeLong. Rough hewn tables are set up in the open space in front of the small stone church, and the entire village turns out, dressed in their finest, which for most people means their least patched clothes. You are, of course, given a place of honor. You are seated near the reverend the priest, a public acknowledgement of your standing. The air is filled with the sounds of laughter, the reedy music of a pipe, and the savory smell of roasting meat. People come up to you constantly. Old man Hemlock wants to show you how his swollen knee has improved since you gave him a willow bark concoction. A young mother proudly holds up her chubby, gurgling baby, one of your recent deliveries, for your approval. Laura and Thomas are here, their son safely bundled in Laura's arms, and they greet you with a warmth that makes your heart swell. You are in your element. You are part of the web, the fabric of this community. You share a joke with the blacksmith. You accept a cup of ale from the brewer. You listen to a long, rambling story from one of the village elders. This is the reward. This is the reason you endure the cold nights. The fear and the awesome responsibility to see the fruits of your labor not just in healthy babies, but in the health of the community itself. To feel their trust and affection washing over you in the warm afternoon sun. But then, something shifts. It's a subtle change, almost imperceptible. As you are laughing at a joke, you happen to glance across the crowded clearing. You see a woman you know well, Martha, the weaver's wife. You delivered all 3 of her children. But today, she is not looking at you with the familiar warmth. She is standing with a small group of other women, and as she speaks, she casts a quick, almost furtive, glance in your direction. Her expression is not friendly. It's tight, pinched. When she sees you looking, she turns away quickly, her back suddenly rigid. A small, cold knot forms in your stomach. It's a feeling you've learned to recognize. A faint prickling at the back of your neck. The sun is still warm. The music is still playing, but for you, a shadow has fallen over the feast. It is the shadow of envy, or perhaps something more. Martha's youngest sister had a difficult birth last winter, a stillbirth. You weren't the midwife on that occasion. Another woman, older and less experienced than you, had attended her, but in a small community, grief doesn't always stay where it belongs. It can splash onto others, staining them with an unearned blame. You try to dismiss it. It's nothing, a passing mood, a misinterpretation. You force yourself to take another bite of bread, to smile at the man beside you, but the feeling lingers. It's like finding a single, sour grape in a bunch of sweet ones. The taste of it taints everything else. This is a no, if unspoken, part of village life. Social dynamics in a small, enclosed community are incredibly complex. Your reputation, your success, makes you a prominent figure, and prominent figures attract not just respect, but also resentment. Historians will call this the limited good theory, the belief, common in peasant societies, that there is a finite amount of luck, health, and prosperity in the world. If one person, like you, seems to have an abundance of good fortune and success, it is implicitly believed that they must have taken it from someone else. Your thriving garden might be seen as the reason a neighbor's crops failed. A string of successful births you attend might, in some dark corner of a resentful mind, be connected to the misfortunes of another family. It's not logical, it's not fair, but it is a powerful undercurrent of belief. As you sit there, the sounds of the feast suddenly seem a little too loud. The smiles a little too bright. You start to notice other things. The way a couple falls silent as you approach. The quick, unreadable look that passes between two men talking by the well. Are you imagining it? Or has some subtle poison been seeping into the soil of your community while you weren't paying attention? This is the strange fragility of your position. Your authority is built on a foundation of successful outcomes. But life is not a string of uninterrupted successes. Babies are lost. Sicknesses take hold. Accidents happen. In a world without a scientific understanding of germs or genetics, there is no satisfactory explanation for these random cruelties of fate. And in the absence of a reason, people will invent one. It is far more comforting to believe that a tragedy was caused by a curse, by a hidden malice, than to accept that it was simply a meaningless, random event. An evil person can, in theory, be identified and punished. Randomness cannot. And so, the search for a scapegoat begins, often long before there is even a crime. You look down at your hands, resting on the rough wood of the table. The same hands that brought Alora's son into the world just a few weeks ago. The same hands that the village has trusted for years, but for the first time. As you look at them, you feel a flicker of fear. You see them as Martha might have just seen them, not as tools of healing, but as instruments of a mysterious and potentially dangerous power. The feast continues around you, to blow of joyous community life, but you are no longer fully a part of it. You are watching it from a slight distance, a new and uncomfortable awareness dawning on you. You have felt a premonition, a subtle shift in the atmospheric pressure of the village, and it fills you with a deep, formless dread. The chill you feel has nothing to do with the evening air. It's the cold recognition that the trust you have worked your entire life to build is as fragile as a spider's web, and just as easily broken. The premonition you felt at the feast doesn't fade. It settles deep within you, a quiet hum of anxiety beneath the surface of your daily routines. Weeks turn into a few months. The vibrant greens of summer deepen into the rich golds and reds of autumn. You continue your work, delivering another healthy baby to a relieved family, treating a woodsman's infected X- wound, and dispensing your usual remedies for coughs and aching joints. On the surface, everything is normal. The smiles have returned. The greetings are warm. Martha, the weaver's wife, even asks you for a balm for her husband's chapped hands. Her face a mask of polite neutrality. Perhaps you imagined it all. But the feeling remains, and what you can't deny. Then comes the night that changes everything. It begins with a storm. This is no ordinary autumn squall. It is a biblical tempest, a sky-rending cataclysm of wind and rain. The wind howls around your small cottage like a hungry wolf, rattling the wooden shutters and sending panic drafts of cold air across the floor. Rain lashes against the wattle and daub walls in relentless, horizontal sheets. The world outside is a churning chaos of noise and darkness. You are huddled by your hearth, shading it more than usual, trying to keep the violent chill at bay. You are grateful, for once, that no one is due to give birth. To be called out on a night like this would be a true ordeal. The thought has barely formed in your mind when you hear it. Not a knock. A frantic, desperate pounding on your door, almost lost in the roar of the wind. Your heart sinks. You know it. You pull your thickest cloak around you, undone with the door. The wind nearly tears it from your grasp, and a blast of cold, wet air invades your home. Standing on your doorstep, drenched and wild mine-eyed, is a man you recognize as Gregor, the stonemason. He is a large, stoic man, not prone to panic, but tonight, his face is a canvas of pure terror. "It's my wife. It's Beatrice," he shouts over the gale. "The baby. It's coming now, but it's too soon. It's weeks too early. This is bad. A premature birth is always dangerous, a gamble with terrible odds. A premature birth in the middle of a storm like this feels like a curse. There is no refusing. Of course, this is your duty." You grab your satchel, your hands already moving with purpose, gathering the things you might need. You pull your hood low over your face and follow Gregor out into the maelstrom. The walk to his cottage, normally a short, pleasant stroll, is a nightmare. The familiar village paths have been transformed into sucking rivers of mud. The wind is a physical force, pushing against you, trying to steal the breath from your lungs. Rain, cold as ice, soaks through your cloak in seconds. It feels as if the natural world itself is in a state of violent, angry labor. The pathetic fallacy, the idea that the weather mirrors human emotion, is a literary concept that won't be named for centuries. But you feel its truth in your very bones. The sky is screaming, and you are walking toward a home where a woman is in her own kind of torment. When you finally stumble into the stonemason's cottage, the scene is one of controlled chaos. Beatrice is on the bed, her face pale and strained. She is a strong, healthy woman, but her pregnancy has been difficult. You had advised her to rest, to be careful. You'd given her herbal teas to strengthen her womb, but it seems nature, or fate, had other plans. Her mother is there, wringing her hands, her face a mask of fear. You get to work immediately. The ordeal of the journey outside forgotten. You strip off your soaking cloak and approach the bed. Your calm presence seems to have an immediate, if small, effect on the room's frantic energy. You speak to Beatrice in low, soothing tones, even as your mind races, assessing the situation. Premature. A bad storm. A frightened mother. This is a trinity of ill omens. This is a scenario where mainstream knowledge and folk wisdom collide. A university-trained physician, well, one here, might consult astrological charts, believing the hostile alignment of the planets during the storm was influencing the birth. He would speak of humors being dangerously out of balance due to the violent weather. You don't have time for charts. Your knowledge is in your hands, in your gut. You know the baby is in the wrong position. You can feel it through the wall of her abdomen. It's breech. For a moment, a wave of pure, cold fear washes over you. A breech birth is one of the most dangerous complications a midwife can face. The risk to both mother and child is immense. There are techniques, of course, difficult, risky maneuvers to try and turn the baby in the womb. Some midwives, it's rumored, know a secret method, a way of manipulating the baby from the outside. Future medical professionals will formalize this as the external cephalic version. But for you, it's a dangerous and semi-minus secret art, passed down in whispers. The line between a life-saving procedure and a harmful interference is terrifyingly thin. Was this skill a gift of experience, or as some priests might claim, an unnatural meddling with God's will? Theologians and doctors would argue for centuries over where the line of intervention should be drawn. As the wind howls outside, rattling the very bones of the house, you make a decision. You have to try. To do nothing would be a certain death sentence for the child, and possibly the mother. You explain to Beatrice, in simple, direct terms, what you must attempt. You see the terror in her eyes, but also a flicker of desperate trust. She nods. You rub your hands together, warming them by the fire. You coat them in a little sheep's fat to reduce friction. And then, as the storm outside reaches a crescendo, its fury seeming to pour directly into the small, tense room, you place your hands on Beatrice's belly and begin the slow, delicate, and terrifying fight for two lives. The room becomes a crucible. The world outside, with its howling wind and lashing rain, ceases to exist. Your entire universe is now the space between your two hands, the taut, stretched skin of Beatrice's belly, and the precious, stubborn life held within. Gregor and Beatrice's mother retreat to the far corners of the room, silent and wide-eyed spectators to this primal battle. They are helpless. The only active forces in this room are you, Beatrice, and the uncooperative child. Your hands move with a strange combination of immense gentleness and determined force. This is not a science. It is an art, a sculpture made of living flesh. You press. You coax. You gently push. It is a blind dance. Guided only by the landscape your fingertips can read through the wall of muscle and fluid. You can feel the shape of a tiny head, the curve of a spine, the awkward angle of a leg. You murmur constantly, a low, steady stream of words. Some are for Beatrice, encouraging her to breathe, to stay with you, to relax her body as much as the searing pain of her contractions will allow. That's it. My girl, breathe with me. Let the muscles go soft. We are just making space for this little one. Other words are for the baby itself. The quiet, urgently, turn, little one, turn for your mother. Head down. That's the way. It's a habit you've had for years. This talking to the unborn. Some might find it foolish. To you, it is a way of focusing your intent, of pouring all your will and hope into the task at hand. This moment is the absolute apex of your skill and your vulnerability. Every ounce of your 30 years of experience is being called upon. You know which herbs can, in theory, help relax the uterine walls. You have a small pouch of black cohosh, a powerful and dangerous plant known to midwives as a last resort for stalled or difficult labors. But a premature birth is different. The risks are magnified. To use such a potent herb now could trigger a hemorrhage. To not use it could mean failure. You make the call not to use it. You will rely on your hands alone. This is the kind of split-second, life minus or minus death decision that no textbook can teach. It's a judgment call based on 1,000 tiny, subtle cues. The texture of Beatrice's skin, the rhythm of her breathing, the specific quality of her groans. This is the intuitive knowledge that your detractors will later point to as unnatural. How could you possibly know such things without the aid of some darker power? The idea that it comes from simple, focused experience is, to a suspicious mind, less believable than the idea of a whispered secret from an unseen entity. The fight goes on. Time loses all meaning. It is measured not in the sputtering of the candle, but in the cresting and falling waves of Beatrice's contractions. During the brief valleys of peace between them, you work. When the mountains of pain rise, you hold steady, supporting her, waiting. Your arms ache. Sweat beads on your own brow. You are locked in a silent, desperate wrestling match. Then, you feel it. A subtle shift. A slight give. The hard, round shape of the baby's head is no longer pressed up against Beatrice's ribs. It is moving, slowly, ponderously, downward. It's turning. You breathe. A note of triumph and relief in your voice. Beatrice, do you feel that? It's turning. A weak sob of hope escapes Beatrice's lips. The tiny movement you have managed to coax from the baby feels like a monumental victory, a shifting of tectonic plates. But the fight is not over. The baby is now in the correct position, but it is still too early, and the labor is exhausting the mother. Her contractions, which had been so powerful, are beginning to weaken, to lose their propulsive force. This is the second great danger. A mother's body can only endure so much. You see the signs of depletion in her face, the grey tinge to her skin, the way her eyes struggle to focus. You need to act, to rally her strength. You call for a cup of watered wine and hold it to her lips. Drink this, Beatrice, for strength. You also pull out another small pouch from your satchel. This one contains a simple mixture of dried ginger and honey, a stimulant, something to give her a final burst of energy without the risks of the stronger herbs. This is your apothecary at work. Your knowledge is not just of dramatic interventions, but of these small, supportive measures. This is the area of historical medicine that is oft unlost the mundane. Practical nursing care that likely did more good than the dramatic bloodletting and purging of the formal physicians. Scholars will forever debate which of these ancient remedies had true pharmacological effects and which were simply comfort measures. Was the ginger a genuine stimulant? Or did the spicy minus sweet taste simply shock the system into a renewed effort? Standing here, in this desperate room, the distinction is meaningless. You need it to work. "All right, my girl," you say, your voice now taking on a new urgency, a commanding tone. The path is clear. Your baby has done its part. Now you must do yours. You must bring this child into the world. Now, you position yourself at the foot of the bed, your hands ready once again. The most dangerous part of the journey is over, but the final, perilous passage is about to begin. The final stage of the labor is a blur of focused intensity. Galvanized by your words and perhaps by the small dose of wine and ginger, Beatrice rallies. She summons a reserve of strength from some deep, primal well within her. With a series of shuddering, exhaustive pushes, guided by your voice and your hands, the baby is born. It happens in a rush. One moment, there is only the struggle. The next, a tiny, impossibly fragile body is sliding into your waiting palms. It is a girl, so small, so terrifyingly small. Her skin is reddish minus purple and almost translucent. Her limbs thin and frail. You've delivered hundreds of babies, but the sheer tininess of this one catches your breath. You act instantly, your movements swift and sure. You clear the fluid from her mouth and nose with a practiced finger. You rub her back vigorously with a rough linen cloth to stimulate her breath. The entire room holds its breath with you. Gregor, the stonemason, has crept closer, has healed. Calloused hands clasped together as if in prayer. Beatrice lies back on the sweat-minus-soaked pillows, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and terror, fixed on the tiny bundle in your hands. The silence stretches. It is a silence unlike any other. It is not peaceful. It is not calm. It is a heavy, screaming void. It is the sound of an absence. The sound of a cry that should be there but isn't. The baby does not gasp. She does not squirm. She does not wail. She is perfectly still, perfectly silent. "Come on, little one," you whisper, your voice tight with desperation. "Breathe. Just one breath." You try again, rubbing her tiny chest, even giving a gentle puff of air into her mouth. A primitive form of resuscitation that you've seen work once or twice on lambs. Nothing. The seconds tick by, each one a hammer blow against the anvil of the room's silence. The baby's reddish skin begins to take on a dusky, bluish hue. And in that moment, you know, the life you fought so hard to turn, to guide, to welcome, it either never took hold or it slipped away in the final, exhausting moments of the journey. The room is still filled with the aftermath of birth, the scent of blood and effort, the disheveled bed, the exhausted mother, but it is hollowed out, emptied of all joy. Slowly, carefully, you wrap the tiny, still body in the cleanest piece of linen you can find. You turn, your face a mask of sorrow that you cannot hide, and walk toward the bed. You don't need to say a word. The truth is in your posture, in the way you hold the small bundle, in the profound, aching silence that fills the room. Beatrice lets out a sound. It is not a cry of pain or a sob of grief. It is a no. guttural wail of pure, animal despair. A sound that seems to be torn from the very fabric of her soul. Gregor lets out a choked cry and collapses to his knees, his broad shoulders shaking. You place the baby into her mother's arms. Beatrice stares down at the perfect, still face, her tears falling onto the linen wrapping. No, she whispers, over and over again. No, no, no. There is nothing you can say. There are no herbs for this. There is no comfort for this. Your job was to bring life, and life has refused to come. Your skill, your experience, your desperate efforts, they have all amounted to nothing in the face of this silent, immovable tragedy. All the successful births, all the healthy, screaming babies you have delivered, fade into insignificance. In this moment, there is only this one, profound, devastating failure. This is the grim reality of your time. Infant mortality is brutally high. Almost every family in the village has lost a child, either in birth or in the fragile first years of life. It is a shared, communal grief, but this knowledge does little to soften the raw, immediate agony in this room. Grief, you know, is not rational. It seeks a reason, a target, an explanation for the unbearable. You go about the necessary, terrible tasks that must be done. You tend to Beatrice, ensuring she does not hemorrhage, your hands moving with a mechanical competence that feels detached from your own swirling emotions of failure and sorrow. Her mother helps you, her face streaked with silent tears. The air is thick with a sorrow so dense it feels hard to breathe. You are acutely aware of the shift in the room's atmosphere. The armed reverence that filled the space when you were fighting to turn the baby has evaporated. It has been replaced by a new, colder emotion. It isn't accusation yet. It is a confused, wounded questioning. Why? What happened? But you know how quickly that questioning can curdle. You have done everything you could. You know this in the logical part of your mind. A premature, breech birth in the middle of a storm. The odds were stacked against you from the start. But medicine in this era is not about odds and statistics. It's about outcomes. And the outcome here is the worst imaginable. Centuries later, historians and medical experts would look at this scenario and see a dozen potential scientific reasons for the baby's death. Placental abruption, a tangled umbilical cord, congenital defects exacerbated by a premature birth. They would have a vocabulary for this tragedy, but you have no such words. In a world where God's will and the devil's mischief are seen as active forces in daily life, the absence of a scientific explanation leaves a vacuum. And you know, with a sudden, sickening certainty, what is likely to fill it. The silence of the baby's lungs is a void, and the whispers of the village are about to rush in. After what feels like an eternity, that is probably no more than an hour, you know it is time for you to leave. Your work here, the work you were summoned to do, is over. The living are tended to, for now, and the dead. The dead are in their mother's arms. The room is a bubble of private grief, and your continued presence feels like an intrusion. You gather your things, your movements slow and heavy. Every familiar object in your satchel, the dried herbs, the clean linens, the worn wooden instruments, feels like a mockery, a testament to your failure. You murmur a few inadequate words of condolence to Beatrice's mother, your voice sounding hollow in your own ears. Beatrice herself is lost to the world, rocking back and forth, whispering to the still bundle in her arms. You turn to leave, and that's when you see him, Gregor, the stonemason. He is standing by the door, blocking your exit. He has risen from his knees, and his face, which was a mask of grief just moments ago, has hardened into something else. His eyes, red minus rimmed in draw, are fixed on you, but the desperate plea for help is gone. It has been replaced by a cold, flinty glare. It is the look of a man searching for a place to put an agony that is too great to bear. And he has found one. He is looking at you. You, he says, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. It's not a question, it's an accusation. You stop, your hand frozen on the strap of your satchel. Trigger, you began, your own voice trembling slightly. I am so sorry. I did everything. Everything. He cuts you off, his voice rising. You came. The storm came. You put your hands on my wife. You muttered your words, and you took my child. The words hang in the air, sharp and poisonous as snake venom. It is the most twisted, most unfair interpretation of what just happened. And yet, in the fractured logic of his grief, it makes a terrible kind of sense. You were the active agent in the room. You were the one orchestrating events. Therefore, the outcome must be your fault. He is not seeing the midwife who fought for his child's life. He is seeing a strange woman who came in the night, performed mysterious actions, and left death in her wake. That is not what happened. You say, trying to keep your voice steady, but it's difficult. A cold dread is spreading through your limbs. The baby was too early. The position was wrong. These things, they happen. Not to us. You spit, taking a step toward you, not until you arrived. I saw your face when you were working on her. It wasn't the face of a healer. It was something else. He is rewriting the memory of the event, even as it is still settling. Your look of intense concentration is now imagined as a witch's trance. Your murmured words of encouragement are becoming sinister incantations. This is how it begins, not with evidence, but with the seed of suspicion planted in the fertile ground of unbearable pain. Beatrice's mother, who had been weeping silently, looks up, her gaze shifting from her grieving daughter to you, then to her son Midas in Midas' role. A flicker of doubt, of terrible new consideration, crosses her face. Gregor's certainty is contagious. He is offering a simple, digestible narrative for an incomprehensible tragedy. It wasn't fate. It wasn't God's will. It was her. This moment is a stark illustration of a concept that historians will grapple with for ages. The social function of an accusation. It doesn't just assign blame. It redirects and channels communal grief and terror away from the abstract and onto a tangible target. It provides a focal point for anger that would otherwise be directionless and consuming. Right now, you are becoming that focal point. You can feel the weight of it, a physical pressure. A particularly strange and little known belief existed in some parts of medieval Europe. The idea of the death midwife. This wasn't a common belief, but a dark piece of folklore that whispered at certain midwives who, in exchange for power or a longer life, had a pact with the devil to offer him a certain number of newborn souls. It was a monstrous inversion of your sacred duty, and while it was a fringe belief, in a moment of extreme trauma like this one, such dark fairy tales can claw their way out of the shadows and into the realm of possibility. Gregor's look suggests he is hovering on the edge of such a terrible fantasy. You know that arguing is useless. His mind is closed, sealed by grief. You have to get out of this room. You look past him. At the door. Your only escape. Gregor, let me pass. You say, your voice now quiet and firm. You are not thinking clearly. For a long moment, he just stands there, his big frame filling the doorway. The air crackles with a tension that is almost as violent as the storm outside, which has now begun to subside, its fury spent. Finally, with a look of profound loathing, he steps aside. He doesn't move far, just enough for you to squeeze past. As you do, you feel his hatred on you like a physical touch, a burn. You don't look back. You can't. You pull the door open and step out into the rain washed pre-dawn. The world is unnaturally quiet. The storm is past, leaving behind all unscoured, clean and dripping. But you don't feel clean. You feel stained. Stained by the death. Stained by the failure. And most of all, stained by the cold fire of the husband's gaze. He has found his witch. And it is you. The walk home is a journey through a changed world. The physical landscape is the same, the muddy path, the dripping trees, the dark shapes of your neighbor's cottages, but your perception of it has been fundamentally altered. Before, This was your village. Your home. No, every shadow seems to harbor a watching eye. Every rustle of leaves in the wet wood sounds like a whispered accusation. The silence that you had cherished on previous post-birth walks now feels heavy, menacing, pregnant with unspoken thoughts. Your feet move mechanically, one after the other, swashing through the puddles. Your body is a vessel of exhaustion and failure. Your mind, however, is racing, replaying the scene in Gregor's cottage over and over again. His words, "You took my child," echo in your head, a relentless, punishing rhythm. You try to counter them with logic, with reason. You list all the factors that were against you. The prematurity, the breech position, the storm, the mother's exhaustion. You did not fail. You were defeated by circumstances beyond your control. But logic is a flimsy shield against the raw, emotional wound of the event. The image of the tiny, still baby is burned into your memory. The sound of Beatrice's wail is a physical ache in your chest, and the hatred in Gregor's eyes, that feels like a brand on your soul. You are not just a midwife anymore. In the space of a few hours, a new identity has been forged for you in the crucible of someone else's grief. You are now the woman who was there when the Stonemason's baby died. This will become your new title, your primary identifier. It will walk ahead of you into every room, a ghostly herald announcing your failure. As you trudge along, you clutch the strap of your satchel, the familiar weight of it now a source of anxiety rather than comfort. This bag, filled with the tools of your trade, suddenly feels like a bag of evidence. The herbs that you used to soothe and heal could so easily be imagined as poisons and potions. The birthing stool you carry in pieces could be seen as a ritualistic altar. Your knowledge, once your greatest asset, now feels like your greatest liability. This walk is a lonely one. But you are not entirely alone. You are accompanied by the ghosts of other women like you, from other times and other places. Historians of the future will document countless cases where healers, particularly female ones, were blamed for outcomes they could not control. The line between a village cunning minus woman and malevolent which was oft undetermined by nothing more than a curdled batch of milk, a sick cow, or a failed crop. Your situation is the most potent of all, for you deal not in milk or crops, but in human life itself. Your stage is the most primal. Your failure is the most devastating. There's a little minus known aspect of medieval law and custom that hangs in the back of your mind. In some regions, a midwife could be required to swear a specific oath before a bishop or town council. This oath would not only cover her duties to her patients, but would explicitly forbid her from using sorcery, witchcraft, or any charms intended to harm. The very existence of such oaths is a testament to the suspicion that clung to your profession like a shroud. While your village has never required such a formal oath from you, the implicit social contract was always there. You will help. You will not harm. And now, in Gregor's mind, you have broken that contract in the most horrific way imaginable. The question is, how many others will come to believe him? You finally reach your own cottage. It looks exactly as you left it, a small, solid, comforting shape in the grey morning light. But as you push open the door, it doesn't feel like a sanctuary, it feels like a cage. The familiar scents of dried herbs and wood smoke now seem cloying, almost incriminating. The bundles of yarrow and lavender hanging from the rafters look less like remedies and more like the strange, sinister decorations of a hedge miner's wit. You sink onto the stool by the cold hearth, too exhausted to even think about rekindling the fire. You sit there in the damp chill, your wet cloak pooling around you on the floor. You don't take it off, you just sit. The silence of your own home is no longer a comfort. It's an echo of the terrible silence in that other room. The silence that should have been a cry. The dawn is breaking fully now, a weak, watery light filtering through your small window. The village will be waking up soon. The baker will be firing his oven. The farmers will be heading to the fields, and soon the news will begin to spread. It will travel from house to house, whispered over fences and at the village well. Did you hear about the Stonemason's wife? The baby, born in the storm last night. It didn't live. The story will begin there. But it won't end there. Grief and fear are tireless travelers. And they will carry Gregor's version of events with them. The question is not if the story will change, but how, and how long it will take for that changed story to arrive. Once again, at your door, you are home, but you have never felt more alone or more exposed. The long, solitary walk is over, but the journey into fear has just begun. The day passes in a thick, surreal fog. You don't sleep. You can't eat. You move about your small cottage, performing routine tasks with a numb, automated precision. You stoke the fire. You fetch water. You sweep the floor. Each action is an attempt to impose a sense of normalcy on a world that feels fractured and unreal. But the silence is a constant companion, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the frantic beating of your own heart. You keep waiting for a knock on the door. Perhaps Elara will come, offering a kind word. Perhaps the priest will visit, to offer spiritual comfort for the grieving family and for you, the attendant. Perhaps another woman will come with a simple ailment, a request that will reaffirm your role as a healer and prove that everything is still the same. But the knock doesn't come. The path outside your door remains empty. Late in the afternoon, you run out of firewood. It's a simple, mundane problem, but it forces you out of your self-imposed confinement. You take your small hand-axe and walk to the communal woodpile at the edge of the village. It's a place of casual gathering, a spot where neighbors often exchange news while collecting their fuel for the day. As you approach, you see two women there already. One is Edith, a woman whose 3 boisterous sons you delivered. The other is a younger woman, new to the village, whose name you don't yet know. They are talking, their heads close together, their voices a low murmur. As you get closer, they fall silent, abruptly. It's not a natural pause in conversation. It is a sudden, deliberate cessation of speech prompted by your arrival. Edith, a woman who has always greeted you with a loud, cheerful bless you, midwife, now just gives you a tight, curt nod. She avoids your eyes, focusing with sudden, intense interest on a particularly gnarled piece of wood. She quickly gathers her load and, with a mumbled word to her companion, hurries away, taking a longer path back to her cottage as if to avoid walking alongside you. The younger woman just stares at you, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. She looks at you as if you were a creature from a story, a wolf or a goblin that has wandered out of the woods and into the daylight. She, too, gathers her wood and scurries away, leaving you standing alone by the woodpile. The snub is as sharp and painful as a physical slap. Edith, a friend or so you thought has just publicly demonstrated a shift in allegiance. The invisible wall that Gregor's grief began to build last night is becoming real, tangible. It is being mortared into place by the fear and suspicion of your neighbors. You collect your wood, your hands trembling slightly. Every sound seems amplified: the thud of the wood you place in your basket, the crunch of your own footsteps on the path. You feel intensely visible, as if every window you pass holds a pair of watching eyes. On your way back, you walk past the small cottage of an elderly couple, Iago and his wife. Their door is always open in the afternoon, a sign of welcome. Iago is usually sitting just inside, carving a piece of wood. As you approach, you see the door as open as usual. You see Iago in his chair, but just as you draw level with his home, he slowly reaches out a wrinkled hand and pulls the heavy wooden door shut. The soft thud of the closing door is the loudest sound you have ever heard. It is a clear, unambiguous statement. You are no longer welcome. You are now outside. This act of door-shutting is a powerful piece of social communication in a world without telephones or written notes. It's a silent, communal vote. It's the village turning its back on you. One household at a time. Historians and sociologists call this shunning, a form of informal social control used to punish those who violate community norms. You are being officially ostracized. not by any formal decree, but by 100 small, unspoken gestures that are just as powerful. There's a specific, strange historical parallel to this. In some medieval towns, the house of a person condemned for a serious crime would be ceremonial D-roofed or have its door and windows boarded up, a physical symbol of their ejection from the community. What you are experiencing is a quieter, but no less brutal, version of the same ritual. Each closed door is a board being nailed across your social standing. You are beginning to understand the terrifying mechanics of how a reputation is unmade. It doesn't require a trial or a formal accusation. It just requires the story to take root. The story of the dead baby, now intertwined with the storm and your strange behavior, is traveling faster than you can. It is morphing and growing with each telling. Gregor's grief-fueled fantasy is becoming the village's accepted truth. You make it back to your cottage. Your heart a cold, heavy stone in your chest. You bolt the door from the inside, a gesture you have never made in the daylight before. Your home, which had felt like a cage, now feels like your only possible shelter, a fortress under siege. The silence you had dreaded now feels like a shield. You look around the small room, at the tools of your trade, the herbs, the clean cloths. For years, this room was a place of safety and healing for the entire community. Women came here for help, for comfort, for secrets kept. Now, the roles have reversed. The village has become the source of fear, and this room is your only haven. The healer now needs healing, but the community that she served has become the source of her sickness. The quiet thud of Iago's door echoes in your mind, a final, definitive punctuation mark at the end of a chapter of your life, the chapter where you belonged. The siege of silence continues for 2 more days. No one comes. No one calls. You are an island, completely cut off from the mainland of village life. The small store of food you have is dwindling. And you know you cannot hide in your cottage forever. You will have to go to the market. The thought fills you with a paralyzing dread, but hunger is a powerful motivator. On the 3rd day, you take a deep breath, unbolt your door, and step outside. The air is crisp and cool. It is a normal market day. You try to tell yourself that everything will be normal. You will buy your bread and cheese, and you will go home. Perhaps you have exaggerated the situation. Perhaps the initial shock has passed. The walk to the small, muddy square where the market is held is agonizing. You keep your eyes fixed on the path ahead, but you can feel the stares. You don't need to look up to know that heads are turning as you pass, that conversations are stopping, that children are being pulled a little closer by their mothers. The air is thick with a judgment so palpable you can almost taste it. When you reach the market, the feeling intensifies. The usual lively hum of commerce seems to dip in volume as you enter the square. The space around you magically clears, as if you are a leper ringing a bell. People find sudden, urgent business at the other end of the market, or turn their backs to you, examining a bolt of cloth with fierce concentration. You force yourself to walk toward the baker's stall, your heart pounding against your ribs. The baker, a man whose wife you helped through a long and difficult labor just last year, is busy serving another customer. When he finishes, he sees you. A flicker of something pity, fear, crosses his face before he schools his features into a mask of gruff neutrality. He wipes his hands on his apron and refuses to meet your eye. "What do you need?" he asks, his voice flat, all the usual friendly banter gone. It's the voice one uses for a complete stranger, a dangerous vagrant. "A loaf of rye, please." "John," you say, your own voice sounding thin and weak. He takes your coin, slaps the loaf down on the counter, and immediately turns to the next person in line, who has been keeping a careful distance. The transaction is cold, swift, and brutal in its efficiency. You are no longer a person to him. You are a problem to be dealt with as quickly as possible. As you turn to leave, you overhear a snippet of conversation from a group of women standing near the weaver's stall. It's Martha, the woman you saw at the feast. and she is speaking in a low, conspiratorial tone, but her words carry in the suddenly quiet ear. And Gregor says she didn't even use the proper prayers. Just strange, guttural noises, and her hums. He said they glowed faintly in the dark. The absurdity of the lie is breathtaking. Glowing hands, guttural noises. It's a grotesque caricature of the event. A story that has been embellished into a piece of pure, malicious theater. But then Martha adds the detail that makes your blood run cold. She has always been strange with those plants of hers. My sister told me she went to her for a sleeping draught once, and the stuff gave her nightmares for a week. Who knows what's really in those concoctions? One person's cure is another's curse. And there it is, the pivot. The Ray minus framing. Your beloved garden, your sanctuary, your living library of remedies, is being publicly Ray minus branded as a witch's pantry. The very source of your healing power is being twisted into the evidence of your malevolence. The knowledge that was once celebrated is now proof of your guilt. This is a classic and tragic trope that future historians will identify in countless witch trials. The accusers would take a woman's known skills, herbalism, animal husbandry, cheese-making, and present them as evidence of supernatural power. The midwife's ability to ease labor became proof she could also cause miscarriages. The dairy maid whose butter was always the best was accused of magically stealing the cream from her neighbor's cows. It was a twisted, no minus win logic where competence itself was suspicious. There's even a fringe academic theory that this suspicion of herbalists was, in a way, a form of primitive germ theory. People didn't understand microbes, but they might have observed that sometimes a healer's concoctions went bad or were contaminated, causing sickness instead of a cure. Not understanding the mechanism, they attributed the negative outcome to malice or witchcraft rather than to natural processes. The curse was, in reality, a patch of mold. You stand there for a moment, frozen, the warm loaf of bread in your hands feeling like a stone. You want to march over there and scream at them. You want to defend yourself, to lay out the facts, to tell the truth. But you know it would be useless. The story has taken on a life of its own. It is no longer about what happened in that birthing room. It is about the village's fear, its grief, its need for a villain. Challenging the story now would be like trying to fight smoke with your bare hands. It would only make you look more defensive, more guilty. Clutching your bread, you turn and walk away, the whispers following you like a swarm of angry bees. You pass your own garden on the way back to your cottage. The late autumn flowers are still blooming, the hardy herbs are still green. It looks the same as it always has. But it is not the same. It is no longer a garden of life, in the eyes of the village. It is now a garden of poisons, a place of dark bargains and unholy power, and you are its keeper. The following Sunday, you do something you have not done in years. You hesitate before going to church. Church has always been a constant, a bedrock of the week's rhythm. It is the one place where the entire community gathers, setting aside their worldly roles to stand as equals before God. Or so the theory goes. Today, you are not sure you will find equality there. You fear you will find a gallery of judges. But not to go would be a statement in itself. It would be an admission of guilt, a retreat. It would be seen as you shunning God, confirming the whispers that you have turned to other, darker powers. So, with a sense of grim determination, you pull on your best cloak, the one you reserve for feast days and services, and you walk to the small stone church. You slip in late, hoping to be inconspicuous. You take a place at the very back, on a rough wooden bench near the door, a spot usually reserved for latecomers or those in mourning. The air inside is cool and smells of old stone, damp wood, and the faint, sweet-scented beeswax from the altar candles. The villagers are already assembled, a sea of dark minus-glared becks. As you sit, a subtle ripple of awareness passes through the congregation. A few heads turn. You can feel the shift in the collective posture of the room. Your presence has changed the atmosphere. The priest, Father Alaric begins the service. He is a man in late middle age, with a stern face and a voice that is more accustomed to admonishment than comfort. He has never been your particular friend, nor your enemy. He has always treated you with a certain detached respect, acknowledging your role in the community while occasionally making vague pronouncements from the pulpit about the dangers of folk remedies and superstition. Today, his sermon feels different. He does not mention you by name. He does not mention Gregor or Beatrice. He doesn't have to. He speaks in generalities, but his words are aimed like arrows directly at the back of the church where you are sitting. He speaks of the devil, a favorite topic of his, but today, he doesn't talk about the great, cosmic battle between good and evil. He talks about the devil's subtlety. He speaks of how evil does not always announce itself with horns and a forked tail. No, he says, his voice rising with theatrical fervor, the greatest danger lies in the hidden evils, the ones that masquerade as good. The enemy is clever. He booms, his voice echoing in the small church. He can twist the gift of knowledge into a tool of pride. He can inhabit the hands that pretend to heal. He can whisper his dark secrets in the guise of ancient wisdom, offering earthly cures that cost the immortal soul. Every word is a blow. He is providing a theological framework for the villagers' fear. He is taking their vague, gossipy suspicions and giving them the weight of divine authority. He is not accusing you of a specific act. He is accusing you of a state of being. Your knowledge, your ancient wisdom, is being painted as a direct channel for demonic influence. The congregation is wrapped. You can see the back of Gregor's head, several rows in front of you. He is sitting ramrod straight, his attention fixed on the priest. You see Martha, the weaver's wife, nodding her head in vigorous agreement. Father Alaric is giving them permission to believe the worst. He is telling them that their suspicion is not just idle gossip, it is righteous vigilance. This is a powerful and dangerous mechanism that historians will study extensively. The role of the clergy in validating and amplifying witch-minus hunts is a subject of intense debate. Was Father Alaric a true believer in what he was saying? Was he cynically using the situation to reassert his own spiritual authority over a popular and powerful lay-minus healer like you? Or was he, perhaps, simply a man caught up in the same wave of fear and confusion as his flock, trying to provide an explanation for a tragedy that shook his community? The answer is likely a complex mix of all three. For you, his motives are irrelevant. The effect is what matters, and the effect is devastating. He goes on to speak of the sanctity of birth, how each new life is a gift from God, and how any interference with that sacred process is a grave sin. He talks about the arrogance of those who believe they can command the forces of life and death, who rely on weeds and roots instead of on prayer and submission to God's will. It's a masterful performance, without ever saying your name. He has tried and convicted you in the court of public opinion, right here in the house of God. There is a strange, and for you, terrifying, historical detail here. Some theological arguments of the time posited that women were inherently more susceptible to the devil's temptations. Their supposed weakness of mind and body, their connection to the unruly processes of childbirth and menstruation, made them easier targets for demonic corruption. The very thing that makes you a midwife, your female body and your intimate knowledge of it, is being used as evidence of your spiritual vulnerability. As the sermon concludes and the final prayers are said, you feel 100 pairs of eyes on you. No one speaks to you as the congregation files out. They give you a wide berth, parting around your bench as if you were a cursed object. You are the last to leave, stepping out of the cool darkness of the church and into the bright, unforgiving sunlight. The world looks sharp and hostile. The sermon has done its work. The whispers and rumors have been sanctified. The gossip has been elevated to a theological certainty. You are no longer just the midwife who had a bad outcome. You are now, in the minds of many, an agent of hidden evil, a woman whose healing hands are a potential instrument of the devil. And the priest himself has all but said so. The priest's sermon acts like a bellows on the embers of suspicion, fanning them into an open flame. The days that follow are worse than anything that came before. The shunning is no longer passive and silent. It has become active and vocal. When you are forced to walk through the village, you now hear the whispers clearly. Words like witch, hex, and devil's servant are no longer confined to hushed conversations. They are spoken just loudly enough for you to hear. Sharp little darts of malice intended to wound. Doors are not just closed now, they are bolted. Mothers pull their children inside as you approach, making the sign against evil over their hearts. The village has collectively decided on your guilt, and they are no longer afraid to show it. Your world has shrunk to the four walls of your cottage in the narrow, hostile path you must sometimes walk. The breaking point, the moment the private conviction becomes a public spectacle, happens on a cold, grey afternoon in the marketplace. You have, once again, been forced out by the need for food. You are trying to buy a few with the vegetables from a farmer who, unlike the others, is merely sullen and not openly hostile. As you are completing the small transaction, a group of children, playing a game of tag, runs through the square. One of them, a small boy of about 8 with a smudged face and bare feet, stumbles and falls in the mud directly in front of you. It's a pure, unthinking instinct. You reach down to help him up. Your hand is outstretched, your face etched with concern. Are you all right, little one? You ask, your voice gentle. The boy looks up at you. His eyes widen, not with gratitude, but with stark terror. He scrambles backward in the mud, away from your outstretched hand, as if you had offered him a snake. Get away from me, he shrieks, his voice high and piercing. My doll says you steal the breath from babies. You're the baby minus witch. The words, spoken in the clear, piping voice of a child, cut through the low hum of the market. All activity ceases. Every head turns toward you. The accusation, which has been a currency of whispers and rumors, has finally been minted into a public coin. A child, repeating the dark stories he has heard around the dinner table, has given it a name and a voice. The baby minus witch. The boy's mother comes rushing over. She scoops him up, not bothering to brush the mud off his clothes. She glares at you with a look of pure venom. Don't you dare touch my son, you evil thing, she hisses, before dragging the crying, pointing child away. You are left standing there, your hand still half minus outstretched, frozen in the aborted gesture of kindness. The silence in the marketplace is absolute. You are the center of 100 hostile stares. You feel naked, exposed, pinned like an insect to a board. The farmer at the stall has backed away from his own wares, his face pale. This is a terrifyingly common feature in the history of such persecutions. The accusation of harming children is one of the most powerful and inflammatory charges imaginable. It taps into the deepest, most primal fears of any community, and often, it was the parroted words of a child that would light the fuse of a formal investigation. Historians have debated the role of children in these events for years. Were they innocent mouthpieces for adult anxieties, or were they sometimes coached, manipulated by accusers to provide pure and unimpeachable testimony? In many documented cases, the confessions of children, often filled with fantastical and grotesque details, were taken as absolute proof of a witch's guilt. In that moment, you also become a victim of a strange quirk of human psychology. People are looking at your body for confirmation of the boy's words. Your full figure, once a comforting symbol of maternal strength and health, now reads as something grotesque, almost monstrous. Your face, etched with the weariness and sorrow of the past weeks, is not seen as the face of a grieving healer, but is the hard, emotional mask of a malevolent being. Your very physical presence is being reinterpreted through the lens of the accusation. There is a peculiar, little minus known folkloric belief that witches were often unable to weep. This dry minus-eyed sorrow was considered a sure sign of guilt, as it was thought a true servant of the devil was incapable of shedding holy tears of remorse. You are not weeping now. You are frozen in shock and humiliation. But to the eyes of the crowd, your tailless face could be seen as yet another piece of damning evidence. The spell of silence breaks. A low murmur ripples through the crowd. You see Gregor, the stonemason, at the edge of the square. He has been watching the whole thing. He exchanges a look with another man. A grim, determined nod. This is what they were waiting for. A public incident. A witness. A reason to move from informal shunning to formal action. You cannot stay here. You drop the coins for the vegetables onto the farmer's cart. Turn and walk away. You do not run. You force yourself to walk with a dignity you do not feel. Your back straight, your head held high, but you can feel the weight of their collective gaze on your back. A physical force pushing you out of the community, out of the life you have always known. You make it back to your cottage and bolt the door. But this time, you know it is not a shelter. It is a waiting room. The child's cry of baby minus, which was not just an insult. It was a verdict, and a sentence was about to be carried out. The official knock on the door, the one you have been dreading, is now no longer a question of if, but when. The waiting is a unique form of torment. The world outside your cottage door goes on, but you are no longer a part of it. You are trapped in a bubble of silence and dread. Listening, every sound is magnified. The creak of the floorboard, the scuttling of a mouse in the thatch, the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, each noise makes you jump. Your heart leaping into your throat. You are a hunted animal, hiding in its burrow, listening for the footsteps of the hunters. You spend the time in a state of numb disbelief, pacing the small confines of your home. You look at your hands. The hands that the child's mother accused of being evil, they are just hands. Large, capable, endowed, trembling slightly. How did it come to this? How did a lifetime of service, of care, of shared joy and sorrow, evaporate so quickly? You try to pinpoint the exact moment it all turned, but you can't. It wasn't a single event. It was a creeping sickness in the village's spirit, a poison that had been brewing long before Beatrice's tragic birth. You were just the vessel into which it was finally poured. The historical context for what is about to happen is complex and varies wildly by region and time. In some places, an accusation of witchcraft might be handled by a local lord or a town council. In others, it would fall under the jurisdiction of the church. There was no single, unified legal process. This patchwork of authority is a point of constant debate among scholars. Did the secular or ecclesiastical courts pursue these cases more aggressively? The answer is, it depends. But in a small, isolated village like yours, justice is often a far more local and personal affair, driven by community pressure and the will of powerful figures like the priest and the reeve. You know who will be coming. It will be the reeve, the village's chief official, a man responsible for keeping order and collecting taxes, and he will not be alone. The knock, when it finally comes, is nothing like the frantic summons of a father minus to minus B. It is a loud, heavy, authoritative bang on the door. It is the sound of power. It is the sound of your old life ending. Your breath catches in your chest. For a moment, you are paralyzed by a pure, animal fear. Your instinct is to stay silent, to pretend you are not here, to will them away, but you know that is futile. They will not be willed away. They will break the door down if they have to. With a resolve born of despair, you walk to the door and lift the heavy wooden bar. You pull it open. Standing on your doorstep are two men. The first is John, the reeve. He is a sturdy, humorless man with a neatly trimmed beard and a self-important air. He holds a short, thick staff of office, a symbol of his authority. He refuses to meet your eyes, staring instead at a point just over your shoulder. The man beside him is Gregor, the stonemason. His presence is a clear and brutal statement. He is the accuser, the aggrieved party, the moral justification for this official action. His face is a mask of grim satisfaction, the cold fire of hatred still burning in his eyes. You are summoned, the reeve says, his voice flat and devoid of any emotion. He is not speaking to the midwife he has known for 20 years. He is addressing a legal problem. You will come with us. He doesn't say why you were summoned. He doesn't say where you are going. He doesn't need to. The entire village knows. The scene is being watched from every window, from every doorway. This is a piece of public theater, and you are its unwilling star. On what charge? You ask, your voice barely a whisper, though you know the answer. It is Gregor who replies, his voice dripping with venom, on the charge of murder, on the charge of witchcraft. The words, spoken aloud by a man in the company of the reeve, make the accusation real in a new and terrifying way. It is no longer gossip. It is now an official matter. There is a peculiar legal concept from this era, which varies by region, known as the clamor. This was the act of making a public outcry or accusation, often at the scene of a crime or before a community gathering. The child's cry in the marketplace was an informal clamor. Gregor's statement now, in the presence of an official, is its formalization. It sets the wheels of whatever passes for justice in this village into motion. You look past them, into the village. You see faces you have known your whole life. Hilara, whose healthy son you delivered, is watching from her doorway, her face a mixture of pity and fear. The baker is there, the blacksmith, the farmer. None of them look at you with kindness. They look at you with a morbid curiosity, as if you are already a condemned soul. They are not your neighbors anymore. They are spectators. You know you have no choice. To resist would be to confirm your guilt. You step out of your cottage, the home you will likely never see again. You don't look back. You let them lead you away. As you walk, one man on either side of you, a small crowd begins to follow. A silent, grim procession. They are not a lynch mob, not yet. They are something almost worse, an audience, eager to see the next act of the tragedy they have all helped to write. You are walking toward your fate, and the entire village is coming along to watch. They don't take you to the church or to the reeve's house. They lead you to a small, squat stone building at the very edge of the village, a place you have only ever passed by with a shudder. It serves as the village's lock minus up, a temporary holding place for drunkards, petty thieves, or strangers who can't give a good account of themselves. You have never, in all your years, known a woman to be put in here. The reeve produces a large, rusty iron key and opens the heavy, nail-studded wooden door. The smell that wafts out is a foul mixture of damp stone, stale sweat, and despair. He gestures for you to enter with his staff. Gregor stays outside, his arms crossed, a grim sentinel guarding the end of your freedom. You hesitate for a fraction of a second at the threshold. Then, knowing resistance is futile, you duck your head and step inside. The door slams shut behind you with a sound of utter finality. The heavy thud of the bolt being shot home echoes in the small space. And then, darkness. Not total darkness. A single, high, narrow slit near the ceiling admits a sliver of weak, grey light. Just enough to reveal the grim reality of your new home. The cell is tiny, no more than a few paces in either direction. The walls are rough, damp stone, weeping with a cold moisture that seems to suck the warmth from your body. The floor is packed earth, cold and slightly sticky under your shoes. In one corner, there is a pile of dirty straw that is meant to be a bed. That is all. The familiar sense of your life, the clean aroma of herbs, the comforting smell of wood smoke, the yeasty goodness of baking bread are gone. They are replaced by the raw, elemental smells of confinement, stone, dampness, and the faint, acrid odor of human misery. You run a hand along the wall, and your fingers come away cold and wet. This is a profound sensory shock. Your life has been one of textures, of scents, of the tangible world of bodies and plants. This cell is the negation of all of that. It is a void. It is designed to strip a person of their identity, to reduce them to a state of basic, animal existence. As your eyes adjust, you can see faint scratches on the stone walls, the desperate graffiti of previous inhabitants, a crudely drawn cross, a series of lines marking the passing of days. A name that is no longer legible. You are now part of this sad, forgotten history of confinement. The historical reality of imprisonment in this era is a subject of much debate. For most common people, long-term incarceration was rare. Jails were expensive to maintain. They were typically used for holding prisoners before a trial or a punishment, which was often physical flogging, the stocks, or worse, or financial. The idea of imprisonment as the punishment itself would become more common in later centuries. So you know, with a chilling certainty, that this cell is not your final destination. It is a waiting room for whatever comes next. A strange and little known fact about these local lock-ups is what they were sometimes called in local dialect. The sinner's pit, or the Little Ease. The name Little Ease was a grimly ironic term for a cell deliberately made too small for a person to either fully stand up or lie down, forcing them into a constant state of discomfort. While your cell is not quite that cruel, the name captures the spirit of the place perfectly. There is no ease here, no comfort, no peace. You sink down onto the pile of straw. Its dampened smells faintly of mold, but you are too exhausted to stand any longer. You draw your cloak tightly around you, a useless defense against the penetrating chill. The silence is absolute, a stark contrast to the noise of the accusation and the procession. But this silence is heavy, pressing in on you. It gives you too much space to think. Your mind, a frantic, cornered animal, races through the events of the last few weeks. You see Beatrice's grief-stricken face. You hear the child's shriek of baby-wit. You feel the hatred in Gregor's eyes. You try to pray, but the words feel hollow, lost in the cold, dead air of the soul. Who would you even pray to? The god of Father Alaric, who seems to see the devil lurking in every healing herb. You are utterly alone. Your skills, your knowledge, your status, they are all gone. Stripped away as surely as if your clothes had been torn from your back. In this stone box, you are no longer a midwife. You are simply a prisoner, a unit of accusation. You think about your garden, who will tend to it, who will know to harvest the few before the first frost, who will know which roots need to be dug up and dried for the winter. The thought brings a fresh wave of despair. Your garden was a living thing, an extension of yourself. To imagine it untended, overgrown with weeds, is to imagine your own legacy withering undying. As pros, the sliver of light from the high window begins to fade, plunging the cell into a deeper, more profound darkness. The cold intensifies, seeping into your bones. You are cold, you are hungry, and you are terrified. The physical reality of your situation is undeniable. But the greatest torment is the mental one. It is the feeling of absolute helplessness, of being caught in the gears of a machine you cannot see or understand. A machine built of your neighbor's fear and grief, and it is grinding you down to nothing. You don't know how long you've been in the cell. Time has dissolved into a murky cycle of chilling darkness and dim, grey light. It might have been a day. It might have been 3. Your only visitor has been a silent boy who shoves a small chunk of hard bread and a wooden cup of water through a slot at the bottom of the door once a day, avoiding any and all eye contact. Then, one morning, the heavy bolt is drawn back. The door creaks open, and the reeve stands there, flanked by 2 other men you don't recognize. They are not from the village. They are burly, grim-faced strangers. Come, the reeve says, his voice as flat as ever. You rise stiffly, your joints aching from the cold and the damp straw. You are weak from lack of food and the gnawing anxiety. They lead you out of the lock up and not toward the village center, but to a small, windowless shed behind the reeve's house. This is not a public spectacle. This is something else, something private and, you sense, far more sinister. Inside the shed, the air is cold and smells of sawdust and fear. A single lantern hangs from a central beam, casting a sickly yellow glow on the sea. Father Elric, the priest, is there. So is Gregor, his face a stony mask of grim anticipation. Another man, a lean, severe minus-looking man in dark, somber clothes, sits at a small table. He has a quill, an inkpot, and a piece of parchment in front of him. He is clearly a clerk of some kind, brought in from a larger town. This is becoming an official proceeding. The examination will now begin, the clerk says, his voice thin and precise. You don't understand. What examination? You assume they're going to question you, to take your testimony. You are wrong. The reeve steps forward. You will remove your clothes, he says. The words hit you like a physical blow. You stare at him in shock and disbelief. But it is necessary. Father Anaric intones, his eyes cast piously toward the ceiling. We must search for the mark, the sigil of your master, the devil's mark. You feel a wave of nausea and cold terror wash over you. You have heard of this. It's a part of the darkest folklore, the most extreme accusations. It is the belief that when a witch makes her pact with the devil, he brands her with a physical mark. It is not a large, obvious brand, but a small, secret signal in an unusual place. A strange scar, a discolored patch of skin, and, most importantly, this mark is said to be insensitive to pain. A needle can be pushed into it, and the witch will not flinch. You are to be stripped and searched. Your body, your private, middle-aged body, put on display for these men, to be poked and prodded in a grotesque hunt for a sign of demonic allegiance. The humiliation is so profound it is almost paralyzing. Your body, which has been a vessel for your knowledge, a tool for bringing life into the world, is now to be treated as a piece of evidence, a text to be scoured for proof of its own corruption. No, you whisper, wrapping your arms around yourself. I will not. The two strangers step forward. Their movements are swift and brutal. They grab your arm, their fingers digging into your flesh. They are strong, and you are weak. They tear your woolen dress, your linen shift, ripping the fabric with a cold, impersonal efficiency. You struggle, but it is useless. In a matter of moments, you are standing naked and shivering in the center of a cold shed, exposed under the hostile gaze of these men. The shame is a physical thing, a burning heat that spreads across your skin. You try to cover yourself with your hands, but one of the men roughly pulls them away. Gregor watches the entire proceeding with an unwavering, clinical intensity, as if he is observing the butchering of an animal. The search begins. It is led not by the priest or the reeve, but by one of the strangers, a man who clearly has experience in this grim work. He is what some would later call a witch-finder, a professional who travels from town to town, offering his expertise in identifying witches for a fee. The historical existence of professional witch-finders like Matthew Hopkins in England is well documented, but the practice also existed on a smaller, less formal scale. These were men who profited from fear, who had a vested interest in finding guilt wherever they were hired. He examines every inch of your skin. He is looking for anything unnatural. A mole you have had since childhood is scrutinized. A small, faded scar on your knee from a fall you took as a girl is noted by the clerk. The process is slow, methodical, and utterly dehumanizing. You feel like you have been turned to stone, your mind retreating to a small, distant corner, observing the violation of your body as if it were happening to someone else. Then, the searcher produces a long, sharp looking needle. This is the pricking, the test for insensitivity. It is a practice born of a terrifyingly circular logic. If the needle finds a spot and you do not bleed or cry out, it is proof of the devil's mark. But there was a gruesome trick to this, a piece of vile theater. Some of these witch-finders used retractable needles, instruments where the blade would slide back into the handle, giving the appearance of being pushed deep into the flesh without actually breaking the skin. The accused wouldn't react because there was no pain, and this would be presented as irrefutable proof of their guilt. He begins to test the marks he has identified, lightly pricking the skin. You flinch at each touch. each small sting of pain. You bleed a little. The searcher grows frustrated. His professional reputation and his payment depends on a positive result. Finally, he focuses on a small, tough callus on the side of your foot, a place hardened by a lifetime of walking in simple shoes. It is thick, dead skin. He pushes the needle in. You feel the pressure, but not the sharp sting you felt elsewhere. You don't cry out. "Aha!" the searcher exclaims, a note of triumph in his voice. "Here, no pain, no blood." Noted down. The reeve commands the clerk, who dutifully scratches on his parchment. It is done. They have found what they were looking for. Or rather, they have manufactured it. Your guilt has been inscribed upon your own body. You are left there, shivering and exposed. As they step back to admire their work, you are no longer a person. You are a piece of condemned flesh, and the proof has been found on your own skin. After the humiliation of the examination, they throw your tattered clothes back at you and shove you back into the cold, damp cell. But this time, you are not left alone for long. The next phase of the process is about to begin. The interrogation. The same group returns. The reeve, the priest, the clerk, and the witch-finder. They set up the small table and the single stool inside your cell, the cramped space forcing a terrifying and unwelcome intimacy. The lantern is placed on the table, its flickering light casting monstrous, dancing shadows on the stone walls. You are forced to sit on the damp straw, looking up at your accusers. The interrogation is not a quest for truth. It is a quest for a confession. The verdict has already been decided. The mark on your foot has sealed it. No, they need the story. They need the details. The narrative that will be presented to the village as the official, sanctioned truth of your evil. The clerk, whose name you learn is Alistair, begins the questioning. His voice is calm, patient, and utterly devoid of compassion. It is the voice of a man peeling an apple, methodical and detached. "Let us begin with the night the stonemason's child was lost. Tell us what you did." You try to tell the truth. You speak in a low, trembling voice, your throat dry. You describe the storm, the premature labor, the baby's breech position. You explain the desperate measures you took to turn the child, the fight to save both mother and baby. You speak as a midwife, using the language of your trade. They listen, but they do not hear. Your words are filtered through their lens of suspicion, and every detail is twisted. You say you turned the child. The priest, Father Alaric, interrupts, his voice heavy with meaning. "By what power did you perform such an unnatural act? Did you call upon the saints?" "No, Father," you say. "I used my hands. It is a technique, a skill." "A skill?" The witch-finder scoffs from the corner where he leans, his arms crossed. "A skill taught by whom? There is no such knowledge in the books of learned physicians. Such manipulation of a child in the womb is not a skill of man, but a trick of the devil." This is the core of their argument, the foundation of their twisted logic. Any knowledge that exists outside of their accepted, male-dominated, text-based authorities, the church and university medicine is by definition suspect. Your practical, embodied, female knowledge is being defined, right in front of you. The questioning continues, circling the same points again and again. They ask about your herbs. The raspberry leaf tea you gave to Alora during her birth. The clerk says, consulting his notes, what was its purpose? To ease the labor, to strengthen the womb. You reply honestly. Or to cast a spell, Father Alaric counters, to bind the healthy child to you, so that you might later claim the soul of another. The suggestion is so monstrous, so far from the truth, that you are left speechless. They are creating a narrative of a long-minus planned, malevolent scheme. Your successes are being recast as the setup for your failures. The most bizarre and debated aspect of many historical witch trials was the nature of the confessions. Many accused witches confessed to the most fantastical crimes, flying on broomsticks, attending midnight sabbaths, consorting with demons. Historians have long argued about why. Was it the result of physical torment, psychological pressure, or did some of the accused, in their despair and confusion, actually come to believe they were guilty? Their minds broken by the relentless assault of the interrogation. They press you for details of your pact. When did you first meet your dark master? Did he come to you in the shape of a man, or a beast, a black dog, perhaps a goat? The witch-midwife finder asks, his eyes glinting with a prurient curiosity. The questions are taken directly from the standard playbook of inquisitors, from pamphlets and manuals on demonology that were beginning to circulate among the clergy and legal officials. You deny everything. I have no master but God. I have made no pact. I am a midwife, a healer. Your denials only seem to enrage them. Your refusal to confess is not seen as a sign of innocence, but is a sign of stubbornness, of a hardened heart. It is further proof of your guilt. The devil gives his servant strength, the priest says, his voice taking on a sorrowful tone that is more terrifying than his anger. He helps them resist, to protect his secrets. But we will break that strength. We will save your soul, even if your body must be disciplined. The veiled threat hangs in the air. They have not used physical force on you yet, beyond the humiliation of the search, but the implication is clear. They have other methods, instruments of persuasion that can loosen a stubborn tongue. The thought sends a fresh wave of ice-minus cold terror through you. The clerk, undisturbed, leans forward, changing his tactic. He adopts a tone of almost gentle reason. Listen to me, he says softly. We have the mark. We have the testimony of the child in the market. We have the righteous grievance of the father. Your guilt is not in question. A confession will not change the outcome, but it can ease your path. It can cleanse your soul before you meet your Maker. Unburden yourself. It is an act of mercy to yourself. It is the most insidious trap of all. He is offering you a path to a good death, a way to reclaim a sliver of agency in your own destruction by authoring the final chapter yourself. He is asking you to collaborate in your own condemnation. You look at their faces, illuminated by the flickering lantern light, the priest's pious certainty, the reeve's bureaucratic indifference, the witch-midwife finder's cruel zeal, the clerk's cold logic. There is no hope here. There is no space for your truth to exist. They have already written the story. They just need you to sign your name at the bottom, and you know, with a despair that is deeper than the cold of the stone floor, that they will not leave until you do. The interrogation stretches on, a relentless tide of questions and accusations. Your voice grows hoarse, your body aches, and your mind feels frayed, like a rope stretched to its breaking point. They deny you sleep, taking turns to question you through the long, cold night. The constant pressure, the hunger, the fear, it all conspires to break down the walls of your reason. But you do not confess. You cling to the truth with the last of your strength, repeating the same denials until the words lose all meaning. I am a healer. I did nothing wrong. Seeing that their psychological tactics are failing, the Reeve makes a decision. He sends one of the strangers out of the cell. There is a new, cold attention in the air. You know what this means. They are moving to the next stage. But before the man can return, there is a commotion outside. A new voice is heard, raised in argument. It is Gregor, the stonemason. He pushes his way into the cell, his face flushed with anger and a strange, desperate energy. This is taking too long, he says, his voice a low growl aimed at the Reeve. She is strong. The devil protects her. But I know the truth. I was there. I will be the witness. The clerk, Alistair, looks up, a flicker of interest in his precise eyes. A direct eyewitness account, especially from the grieving father, would be powerful. It would be the capstone on the case they have been building. Very well, he says, gesturing for Gregor to speak. Tell us what you saw. Tell us everything. And so, Gregor begins to remember. He stands in the center of the cell, the lantern light carving deep shadows on his anguished face. He is not just speaking. He is performing. He is Ray Minus enacting the night of the birth. But it is a version that has been twisted through the lens of his grief and hatred, and polished by the dark suggestions of the village's gossip. She came into the house, and the storm grew worse. He begins, his voice trembling with a convincing Minus-looking emotion. It was as if she brought the tempest with her. The very air grew cold. He describes how you tended to Beatrice, but in his telling, your gentle massage becomes a strange, rhythmic pounding. Your murmurs of encouragement become guttural chants in a language I did not know. He is taking every real action you performed and dipping it in a vat of poison, giving it a sinister interpretation. And her hands, he continues, his eyes wide as if reliving a horror. When she was trying to turn the child, I saw them. In the dim light from the hearth, they seemed to be surrounded by a faint, sickly green glow. It was not a natural light. The lie is so audacious, so utterly fabricated, that you gasp, but the others in the room nod grimly. It confirms what they already know. The witch Minus finder exchanges a satisfied look with the priest. This is better than a confession. This is a pure testimony, unsullied by the accused denials. The power of such eyewitness testimony in historical trials cannot be overstated. In an age before forensic science, the word of a respected member of the community, especially one who was a victim, carried immense weight. The psychological state of the witness, their grief, their potential for delusion or malice was rarely questioned. The concept of a false memory, where a person can genuinely come to believe they witnessed something that never happened, was centuries away from being understood. Historians still debate the motives of such witnesses. Was Gregor deliberately lying to achieve a desired outcome? Or had he, in his profound trauma, created a new set of memories that felt utterly real to him? A fantasy that explained the unbearable reality of his loss. The most chilling part of Gregor's testimony comes next. He describes the moment of the birth itself. When the baby came, he says, his voice dropping to a near minus whisper, she held it up, and for a moment, just a moment, before she wrapped it, she seemed to lean close and breathe out onto its face. A small, dark cloud, like smoke. And that is when the life went from it. She didn't try to save it. She stole its breath. This is the final, monstrous inversion. Your desperate attempt at resuscitation. The breath of life you tried to give the child has been twisted into a demonic act of soul minus stealing. It is the perfect, diabolical explanation that his grief minus saddled mind has concocted. It explains everything. It gives him a villain, a reason, a focus for his rage. As he finishes, there is a profound silence in the cell. The clerk has been writing furiously, capturing every word. Father Alaric makes the sign of the cross, his face a mask of holy horror. The Reeve nods slowly. This is what they needed. You look at Gregor, at this man whose wife you tried to help, whose children you might have one day delivered. You see no flicker of doubt in his eyes, no sign of a guilty conscience. You see only the absolute, unshakable conviction of a man who has found his truth. He is not just an accuser. He is a true believer. The Reeve turns to you. His face is hard. You have heard the testimony of an honest man. He says, there is nothing more to be said. Your stubborn silence is an insult. We have all the proof we need. You did not need your confession after all. Gregor has confessed for you. He has written your story, signed your name, and delivered your soul to the pyre. The stranger who had been sent for an instrument of persuasion is no longer needed. The testimony has done its work far more effectively. They leave you in the suffocating silence of the cell. But the space is now crowded with the phantom words of Gregor's testimony. His lies have more substance, more weight in this world than your truth ever did. As you sit on the cold, damp straw, the full, terrifying logic of your accusation finally becomes clear to you. It is a perfect, self-contained, and inescapable circle. Your very identity as a midwife is the first and most crucial piece of evidence against you. You are a woman who operates in the mysterious borderlands between life and death. You hold knowledge that is not sanctioned by the male-dominated institutions of the church or the universities. This automatically places you in a position of suspicion. Your power is not understood, therefore it must be feared. Then comes your skill. Every success you have ever had is now being reinterpreted. The healthy babies you delivered. You were merely fattening the flock for your dark master, building trust so that you could strike at the most opportune moment. The herbs that healed. They were potions to create dependency and subtly weaken the souls of your patients. Your ability to calm a panicked mother, to turn a breech baby, to manage a difficult birth, these are not seen as evidence of your expertise. They are seen as evidence of supernatural interference. Your competence is your crime. This twisted reasoning is something future historians will call a heretical imperative. It's a closed loop of thought where all evidence, no matter what it is, can be made to fit a pre-existing conclusion. If you are successful, it is proof of the devil's aid. If you fail, as you did with Beatrice's child, it is proof of your malevolent intent. Success and failure are two doors that led to the same room. Condemnation. There is no third door for innocence. The devil's mark found on your foot is another crucial link in the chain. The callus, a mundane product of a lifetime of walking, has been officially certified as a demonic seal. It is physical proof, a tangible piece of evidence that makes the spiritual accusation feel real and grounded. The fact that the search was conducted by a man who had a financial stake in finding it, and that the test was a piece of theatrical trickery, is irrelevant. The clerk has written it down. It is now a fact. And finally, there is Gregor's testimony. His story provides the narrative glue that holds all the other pieces together. He has provided a motive serving the devil, a method dark magic in the breath of death, and an eyewitness account. He has built a bridge of lies between the midwife and the baby-witch, and the entire village is now willing to walk across it. This whole process reveals a little known but chilling aspect of some pre-modern legal systems. The concept of reputation as evidence. In a world with little physical evidence, a person's known character and the community's opinion of them could be presented in a trial. In the beginning, your good reputation protected you. But once that reputation was poisoned, your bad character itself became a form of proof. The whispers, the shunning, the priest's sermon, they weren't just a social punishment. They were the informal construction of your bad reputation, which could then be used in a formal proceeding. You are being tried, in part, for the crime of no longer being liked. The academic debate on this is fascinating. Did the legal system create the witch, or did the community sphere create the witch, with the legal system simply providing the rubber stamp? In your case, it feels like a terrifying partnership. The village provided the fear, the gossip, and the accuser. The authorities the reeve. The priest, the witch-finder, provided the pseudo-legal framework, the proof, and the official language of condemnation. One could not have succeeded without the other. You are trapped. Every denial you make is seen as the devil's stubbornness. Every piece of your life's work is evidence against you. Your body has been declared the property of Satan. Your words are meaningless. You understand now that you are not fighting a legal case. You are fighting a story, and the story they have written is more powerful than the truth. It is simpler, it is more dramatic, and it provides a comforting, if terrifying, explanation for a random tragedy. The village needs a witch far more than it needs a midwife. You finally grasp the most terrible truth of all. You could be the most pious, saintly woman in the world, and it would not matter. You could have saved 100 babies, and it would not matter. Once the accusation was made and gained momentum, your individual reality ceased to exist. You became a symbol, a canvas onto which an entire community projected its deepest fears about death, about women, about knowledge, and about the ever-mindless present. Terrifying randomness of fate. Your guilt was decided not in the cell, not in the shed, but weeks ago, at the harvest feast. When that first cold glance of suspicion was cast your way, everything since then has just been a formality. A slow, brutal, and meticulously logical march to a foregone conclusion. The day of the verdict arrives without warning. There is no formal trial as you might imagine it, no jury of your peers, no chance for you to speak in your own defense. That has all been deemed unnecessary. The examination and the eyewitness testimony have served as the trial. Today is merely for the pronouncement of the sentence. A piece of public theatre designed to reaffirm the village's righteousness and cleanse the community of its taint. The two strangers come for you in the morning. They drag you from your cell, your limbs stiff and uncooperative. You are weak, disoriented, and enveloped in a strange, detached calm, the kind that comes when all hope has been extinguished. They don't take you to the church this time. They march you to the center of the marketplace. The very spot where the child pointed his finger and called you baby minus witch. The entire village is there. It feels as though not a single soul has remained at home. They are packed into the square, a silent, expectant crowd. Their faces are a sea of morbid curiosity. You see Alara, the young mother you helped, her face pale and her eyes downcast. You see the baker, the blacksmith, and the other people you once called neighbors. They are not here to support you. They are here to witness the spectacle. They are here for the end of the story. A small, raised wooden platform has been erected in front of the weaver's store. It is not a gallows, but a stage. The reeve, the priest, and the clerk, Alistair, are standing on it. Gregor is there too, standing slightly behind them, a living symbol of the community's grievance. They force you to stand at the edge of the platform, facing the crowd. You are alone, a single, isolated figure against the backdrop of your accusers and the silent, watching village. The reeve steps forward and unrolls a piece of parchment. It is the clerk's neat summary of your crimes. Let it be known, the reeve begins, his voice booming across the silent square, that this woman, known to you as a midwife, has been examined according to the laws of God and man. He proceeds to read a list of the findings. He speaks of the unnatural mark found upon your body, a clear and irrefutable sigil of a pact with the devil. He recounts Gregor's harrowing testimony, describing in lurid detail the dark chants, the glowing hands, and the demonic breath of death that stole the life of an innocent child. Each word is a stone thrown at you. You stand there, mute, your eyes scanning the crowd. You are searching for a single face that holds a flicker of doubt, a glimmer of sympathy. You find none. You see only fear, suspicion, and a strange, almost rapturous excitement. They are caught up in the drama of it all. Your destruction is a form of entertainment. The historical basis for such public verdicts is strong. Justice in this era was often a performance. Punishments were carried out in public not just to deter others, but to create a sense of communal catharsis. By witnessing the identification and punishment of the evil in their midst, the community could feel purified, their social order restored. You are the sacrificial lamb, and your public condemnation is a ritual to restore the village's sense of safety and divine favor. There is a peculiar legal nuance that some historians point to. In some jurisdictions, a confession was technically required for a death sentence in witchcraft cases. This is why interrogators were so relentless. However, in many local, less formal proceedings, overwhelming evidence like a devil's mark combined with strong witness testimony could be enough to secure a conviction, especially when public pressure was high. The rules were malleable, bent to fit the desired outcome. Finally, the reeve finishes his recitation of your supposed crimes. He rolls up the parchment and turns to Father Alaric. It is time for the moral and spiritual justification. The priest steps forward, his face a mask of solemn piety. The devil has walked among us in this village, he proclaims. He has worn the face of a neighbor. He has used the hands of a healer. But we have not been blind. Through vigilance and faith, we have uncovered the source of this poison. He looks directly at you, his eyes cold and hard. You have turned from God's light. You have used your sacred knowledge of birth for profane ends. You have offered up a pure soul to the darkness. For this, you are cast out. You are cast out from this community. You are cast out from the grace of the church. And you are cast out from the sight of God. He raises his hand and makes a formal sign of excommunication in the air before you. Then, the Reeve steps forward again for the final verdict. His voice is flat, bureaucratic, as if he were announcing a new text. By the authority vested in me, and in accordance with the evidence presented and witnessed, you are found guilty of the crime of witchcraft and the murder of the infant child of Gregor and Beatrice. The sentence is death. A collective gasp, followed by a low, excited murmur, ripples through the crowd. The sentence has been passed. The story has reached its climax. You feel nothing. The words are just sound. They wash over you, meaningless. Your mind has retreated so far that you are merely an observer of your own condemnation. You look at the sky, a vast, indifferent expanse of grey. You think of your garden, of the feel of cool earth on your hands, of the scent of chamomile in the sun. It is a world away, a life away. You are no longer the midwife. You are no longer a healer. You are a condemned witch, standing on a wooden platform, waiting for the end. They lead you back to your cell. The final act of the drama, the execution itself, is scheduled for the following day at dawn. The village needs a night to savor the verdict, to let the reality of their victory over evil sink in. For you, this last night is a strange and unexpected gift. After the noise, the crowds, and the public humiliation, the cold, silent darkness of the cell feels almost like a mercy. There is no more fear. Fear is an emotion based on the possibility of a worse future, and you have now arrived at the worst possible future. There is nothing left to be afraid of. There is no more hope, so there can be no more disappointment. All that is left is a profound, empty stillness. You do not spend this final night thinking of Gregor's lies or the priest's sanctimony. You do not dwell on the faces in the crowd or the injustice of your fate. To do so would be to give them your last few precious hours of consciousness. Instead, your mind, finally free from the frantic struggle to survive, drifts back. It wanders through the sunlit corridors of your memory, seeking out not the shadows, but the light. You don't think about the one baby you lost. You think of all the ones you saved. You remember the first birth you ever attended alone, after your mother passed. You were so young, so terrified, your hands trembling as you took the slippery newborn. The overwhelming relief and joy you felt when it let out its first healthy cry, it comes back to you now, as clear and sharp as if it were yesterday. You remember the twins. The whole village had said it was a terrible omen, that the mother was cursed, but you worked for 2 days and 2 nights without sleep, and you delivered 2 small but healthy boys. You remember the look on the father's face, a mixture of terror and awe, as you placed a baby in each of his arms. He had expected death and you had given him a double portion of life. You remember Laura, just a few months ago. The simple, straightforward joy of that birth. The father's whispered, "God bless your hand," for a fleeting moment. The memory is so sweet it brings an ache to your chest. You start to count them. You go through the families of the village, one by one, in your mind. The blacksmith's daughter, the baker's son, the Reed's own youngest child. You had been there for all of them. You remember the specific details of each birth, the long labors, the funny things the mothers said in their pain, the tiny, perfect fingernails of the newborns. You can almost feel the weight of them in your arms, the warmth of their small bodies. These memories are your true legacy. They are the truth that will never be written down in the clerk's neat script. They are the history that will be erased by the new story the village has written for you. But in the quiet sanctuary of your own mind, they are real, they are yours, and no one can take them from you. There is a peculiar historical debate that touches on this. Some scholars, looking at parish records, have tried to quantify the success rates of historical midwives. They count baptisms and burials, trying to create statistics. But this academic exercise misses the point entirely. Your life wasn't about statistics. It was about these individual, unrepeatable moments of human connection. It was about the trust placed in you, and the relief and gratitude you saw in the eyes of the mothers and fathers you served. A strange thought occurs to you. In some ancient cultures, it was believed that a person's soul was made up of all their memories. If that were true, then your soul is not the dark, shriveled thing the priest described. It is a vast and luminous thing, crowded with the faces of the children you helped into the world. It is filled with the echoes of their first cries. You even remember the odd, funny moments. The time a nervous father fainted dead away, and you had to deliver the baby while simultaneously telling the other women to put his feet up. The time a mother insisted on giving birth while holding onto her favorite goat for comfort. The strange herbal requests, the bizarre folk remedies you were asked to perform. The small, human comedies that played out in the sacred space of the birthing room. These are not the memories of a monster. They are not the memories of a witch. They are the memories of a life spent in the service of life. As the first faint hint of grey light begins to appear in the high slit of a window, a profound peace settles over you. You have been stripped of your name, your home, your reputation, and soon, your life. But you have reclaimed your own story. You know who you are. You are not the baby minus which from their fevered imaginations. You are the midwife. You are the woman whose hands brought forth a generation. They can kill your body, but they cannot kill the truth. It lives in the memory of every breath you hope to draw. In your final moments of quiet, you don't think of the accusation, or the trial, or the verdict. You think of the children. You close your eyes, and you see their faces, and you smile. The dawn comes, grey and cold. The sound of a hammer striking wood echoes from the marketplace. A grim punctuation to the morning silence. They are finishing their preparations. As the village begins to stir, a new reality is dawning, not just for you, but for them as well. Though they don't yet realize it, by condemning you, they have created a vacuum, a void at the very heart of their community's life cycle. They have broken the vessel that held their collective knowledge of childbirth. Later that same week, a young woman named Isabel, the baker's wife, will feel the first familiar pains of labor. Her husband, John, the baker who sold you your last loaf of bread with cold indifference, will be seized with a panic far greater than the usual anxiety of a father minus to minus B. His first instinct will be to run for you, and then he will remember, with a sickening jolt, that you are gone. Who will he call upon now? There is another woman in the village, an elderly widow named Old Maida, who sometimes helped you, but she only ever assisted with the simplest of births. She doesn't have your knowledge of herbs, your skill in difficult positions, your calm authority. She is terrified of the responsibility. When the baker comes to her door, she will shake her head, her face pale with fear. I can't, she will whisper. I don't know enough, not for a first baby. The other women of the village will gather at Isabel's bedside. As they always do, they will bring their own experiences, their own fragments of folk wisdom. They will try to remember the things they saw you do, the words you said, but it will be like trying to assemble a complex machine with only a few scattered parts and no instruction manual. They have the rituals, but not the knowledge. They know to boil water, but they don't know why. They know you used to murmur encouragements, but they don't know the critical signs to look for while they are murmuring. Isabel's labor will be long and difficult. The baby will be turned slightly, its shoulder presenting first a complication you would have recognized and corrected in minutes. But the women in the room will only see that the labor has stalled. Fear will begin to creep into the birthing room. A cold, unwelcome guest. They will pray. They will panic. They will give Isabel contradictory and useless advice. The absence of your skill will be a palpable thing, a ghost in the room. The village has murdered its own expertise. This is a phenomenon that some historians speculate was a real, if uncontroverted, consequence of the witch-hunts, when experienced folk healers and midwives were persecuted. Communities were left medically vulnerable. The official male physicians were too expensive and too far away from most common people. By destroying their local, informal healthcare system in a fit of moral panic, they may have inadvertently increased their own infant and maternal mortality rates. The fear of witchcraft, in a grimly ironic twist, may have led to more death, not less. The debate still lingers. Did the persecution of midwives represent a genuine clash between two competing medical paradigms, the female, tradition-based model versus the male, university-based one? Or was it more a case of social hysteria that happened to target these vulnerable but powerful women? The truth is likely a messy combination of both. But for the baker's wife, sweating and screaming in her bed, the academic debate is meaningless. The only thing that is real is her pain, her fear, and the terrifying absence of the one person who would have known what to do. In the end, after a grueling ordeal, Isabel will give birth to a living child. But both she and the baby will be weakened, their recovery slow and uncertain. The birth will be seen not as a joyful event, but as a terrifying battle that they were lucky to survive. And the whispers will start again. But this time, they will have a different target. The women will whisper that old Magda is useless. They will whisper that Isabel must have some hidden sin to deserve such a difficult labor. The fear and blame that you once absorbed will not disappear. You will simply metastasize, seeking new hosts, poisoning the community from within. They thought that by destroying the witch, they were casting out the darkness. But they will slowly come to realize that the darkness was not in you. It was in their own ignorance, their own fear of the natural world, their own need to find a simple answer for the complex and often tragic realities of life and death. The village is now a ship without a navigator, sailing the treacherous waters of childbirth with only superstition and prayer for a map. They have rid themselves of their curse, but they have also thrown their most valuable treasure overboard. They are a community without a midwife, and they will pay the price for it. One terrifying, uncertain birth at a time. Your story does not end with your death. It merely transforms. It sheds its skin of fact and truth and takes on a new, more enduring form, the form of a ghost story. In the years that follow, your name will become a tool used by parents to frighten their children into obedience. Be good, or the old midwife will come and snatch you from your bed. They'll say, the cottage where you lived, which will stand empty because no one dares to live in it, will become a place of legend, a haunted landmark on the edge of the village. Children will dare each other to run up and touch its decaying door, only to flee in shrieking terror. Your garden, once a place of life, will run wild. The carefully tended rose will disappear under a riot of weeds and thorns, but some of the old herbs will persist: the hardy mint, the stubborn yarrow, the ethereal foxglove. Their presence will be seen as proof of the land's lingering corruption. It will be called the witch's garden, and people will cross to the other side of the path to avoid it, muttering prayers as they hurry by. The narrative of your life will be completely rewritten, polished and perfected with each telling around the winter hearth. In this new version, you were never a healer. You were always a malevolent force, a servant of darkness who masqueraded as a helper for years, patiently waiting for the right moment to reveal your true nature. Gregor's lies about your glowing hands and your breath of death will become accepted historical fact. New details will be added. People will remember seeing you talking to animals, or recall that milk always curdled when you walked by. Your story will become a cautionary tale, but the caution it teaches will be a perverse one. It will not be a warning against ignorance and fear. It will be a warning against female knowledge. It will be told to young women to discourage them from being too clever or too curious about the secrets of the body or the earth. Look what happened to the midwife. Mothers will tell their daughters, she knew too much. It is better to be simple and pious. Your memory will be used to enforce conformity, to keep women in their prescribed place. This process of transforming a historical figure into a folkloric one is a common and powerful phenomenon. History is complex, messy, and morally ambiguous. Folklore is simple, clear, and has a straightforward lesson. By turning you into a monster, the village can absolve itself of its own role in the tragedy. They were not a fearful mob that murdered an innocent woman. They were heroic witch-minus finders who bravely purged their community of a great evil. Your monstrousness is essential for their righteousness. There is a strange, sad academic footnote to this. Centuries later, when folklorists and historians begin to collect local tales, your story might be written down. It will be categorized as a local legend or a witch tale. They might debate its origins. Is it a faded memory of an actual historical event, or is it a classic archetype? The evil crone figure found in stories all over the world. The person you actually were, skilled, compassionate, and tragically doomed professional, will be completely lost. Buried under layers of myth and slander, you will have become pure fiction. And what of Beatrice, the mother whose tragedy started it all? She will live on, a ghost in her own life. She will never have another child. She and Gregor will stay together, bound not by love, but by their shared, dark memory. Gregor will become a bitter, self-minded righteous man, his identity forever tied to his role as the man who exposed the baby-mindless witch. His testimony will be his one great, defining moment. But sometimes, on a quiet night, when the wind howls in a certain way that reminds her of the storm, Beatrice will have a flicker of doubt. She will remember your hands on her belly, not as glowing claws, but as strong, steady, and surprisingly gentle. She will remember your voice, not as a guttural chant, but as a low, calming murmur. A tiny, heretical thought will enter her mind. What if we were wrong? But she will crush it immediately. The alternative that her child's death was a random, meaningless tragedy, and that they killed an innocent woman out of their own pain and fear is a truth too terrible to bear. It is easier to live with a witch than with that kind of guilt. And so, your name will live on, but your life will be forgotten. You will become a whisper in the dark, a spooky story, a tool to frighten and control. The complex reality of your existence will be flattened into a simple, useful lie, and in a world that needs monsters to explain its own darkness, you will be a very useful monster indeed. And now, we come to the final, quiet truth. Here, at the end of all things, you can see it with a clarity that was impossible in life. The curse was never yours. You were not the cursed one. They were. The curse was not a demonic pact whispered in the dark. It was a poison they brewed themselves. In the bright light of day, from the most common and mundane of ingredients. The first ingredient was fear, the deep, primal fear of death, of pain, of the unknown, the fear of a world they could not control. A world where babies could die for no reason, where storms could rise without warning, where life was fragile and fleeting. This fear was a constant, low hum beneath the surface of their lives, and they were desperate to give it a name and a face. The second ingredient was ignorance. Not stupidity, but a simple lack of knowledge. They did not understand infection, or genetics, or the complex mechanics of childbirth. In the absence of a scientific explanation, they reached for a supernatural one. Your knowledge, because it was mysterious to them, became magic. Your failure, because it was inexplicable, became malice. Their ignorance was a darkness that allowed any number of monsters to grow. The third ingredient was grief. The raw, untamed, and powerful grief of the father and the mother. Gregor's grief was so immense that it had to be channeled outward. He could not contain it. It became a weapon, a righteous fire that needed something to burn. You were simply the nearest, most logical thing to set alight. Grief made him blind, and it made him cruel, and it gave his cruelty the noble sheen of justice. The fourth ingredient was power, the petty, mundane power dynamics of a small village. The priest, Father Alaric, seeking to reaffirm his spiritual authority over a popular and independent female practitioner. The rave, asserting his civic control, the witch-finder, profiting from the trade of fear, and the collective power as a group, the terrifying momentum of a mob that has found a common enemy. Your destruction solidified their own positions. These were the ingredients of the curse: fear, ignorance, grief, and power. They mixed them together in the cauldron of their community, and they called the resulting poison witchcraft. Then, they forced you to drink it. But the curse did not die with you. It lingered. It remained in the village, a permanent stain on their collective soul. It manifested as the increased fear surrounding every birth. It showed itself in the suspicion that now fell upon any woman who was too clever, too independent, or simply unlucky. The curse was the shriveling of their own community, a PGT of trust, the hollowing out of their own humanity. This is the great, tragic irony that the historical record often shows. The communities that were most fervent in their hunt for witches were not magically cleansed of their problems. They did not become more prosperous or more pious. They often became more fractured, more fearful, and more paranoid. The witch-hunt was not a cure. It was a symptom of a deeper sickness, and the cure only drove the disease further into the bones of the community. You see it all now. You see your life, not as the tragedy they wrote, but as it truly was, a life of service, brought down by a perfect storm of human weakness. You were a healer in a time that was not yet ready for the healing you offered. Your story is not a lesson about the dangers of witchcraft. It is a lesson about the dangers of certainty, the poison of righteous fear, and the terrifying ease with which a community can turn a neighbor into a monster. The curse was never in your hands, which brought so much life into the world. It was in their hearts, which were so full of fear, and that is a curse that no execution, no banishment, no ritual can ever break. They were their own witch, their own demon, their own undoing. And you were just the midwife. And so, the memory of the midwife, and the quiet truth of her story, begins to soften and fade, dissolving into the gentle stillness of the night. Her presence, once so vivid in our minds, now recedes, becoming part of the deep and peaceful quiet that surrounds you now. The weight of her tale can be laid down, released into the peaceful dark, as your own journey continues onward, into the soft and welcoming landscape of your dreams. There are no more accusations to hear, no more sorrows to bear, only a profound and gentle calm. The village, the cell, the trial, they are all just echoes now, fading into a deep and comfortable silence. A silence that is here, just for you. Let this quiet be your final companion tonight. A soft blanket for your mind as you drift effortlessly into a place of deep and truly restorative rest. The final word has been whispered. If your mind is still gently stirring, you're welcome to drift into another of my stories. If not, I wish you a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.